Good evening. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We're going to start tonight at 6 o'clock. We have two interviews. So if you, the rest of you in the audience, just bear with us, okay, for a minute. Our first interview is somebody that is applying for the Conservation Commission, Dennis Nixon. Do you want to come up and get closer to us? And you don't have to use the mic.
Yeah. Dennis, after 8,000 years on the Harbor Commission, why do you want to be on the Conservation Commission?
My only question is, it sounds like you were in the Virgin Islands for the last 5 years. Are you planning to be here? Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, no issue with that at all. I just, if we like to put people who are full-time people on these things. All right. Balance of power is back in Jamestown. Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Excellent. I have no other questions.
I know Dennis pretty well because I was on the town council during part of that period. I'm hoping nobody who threatened you was in the audience now. But I used to say that people would sell their mother for a mooring, and I think that was true. So you did a fine job on Harbor Commission, and that was great. So I have no other questions. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, thank you, Dennis. Welcome back to Jamestown. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Knock on wood.
You'll bring the average age down about, 20 years.
Um, yeah. Do you have a sense of what type of law you want to practice? Good summer. Well, I think it is.
You have 2 more applicants for conservation.
I think that's a good reason to. Yeah, and good luck on the bar.
We'll begin now with the roll call. Roberta?
Eddie Ross,
Here.
Mary Maha,
Here.
Nancy Bai,
Here.
Mary Glacken. Here. Eric Brine.
Here.
Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order at this time. And would you please, if you are able, join me to sing the Pledge of Allegiance? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to sit as the Board of Water and Sewer Commissioners.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Okay, we'll begin with open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak at open forum on water and sewer matters? Okay, I guess not. Seeing as there's no one, I will then ask, that guy. Come on up. I'm not sure if it's on.
I think it's on, it was on the second.
Now?
Now it's on Mike, yep.
But you might want
Looking at you,
to
it's
give
on.
your name.
Oh, sorry, Mike. That's Mike Gray.
That's fine. Good evening. Just to report on a few things. I've provided you just a little brief update on some of the things we're working on. The emergency generator is set to be delivered tomorrow. And this is the generator that was damaged during the blizzard. In fact, it was a catastrophic failure of the generator itself. So we've been waiting for delivery of this. We've been operating with a backup generator. Well, not the backup generator operating, but we've had a generator that was connected as a rental until this gets delivered tomorrow. So we'll be installing that.
So this is a pretty expensive item, correct?
Yes, and unfortunately, it was an unforeseen expense.
Right.
I believe we've, as a team, put in as part of our FEMA,
Right.
which was denied. The whole region was denied that. So we're working through our insurance
Right.
to determine if it's something that can be covered.
Thank you.
As I've reported to you over the last few months, we've been working on this water study with PAR Corporation, which is our consultant, who's been involved with us for just about 30 years doing water supply management and planning for us. This study, what we're doing is one of the elements is we're looking at all sources or potential sources of water. So what I'm reporting to you is last week, Ed and I went to the Turnpike and Bridge meeting, a regular meeting of theirs. And the reason for our attendance, we were seeking access to the pump station. I don't know if you're familiar, but the building that's next to Route 138 at North Road, that building, that wooden structure, is a pump station. And the purpose of that is to collect the stormwater from the highway. The Cross Island Highway is collected in there, and then it's pumped to the top of Tashtuck Road, Tastic Road. There's a water quality basin right above Seaside Drive, adjacent to the Jamestown Bridge, off to the side of the off-ramp. And all of that water is lost. And so what we're looking to do is to determine how much and if there's any beneficial reuse of that water.
Goes from that pond out to the ocean, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So stormwater, what they did was, I mean, there was no area to treat it because it was all wetlands in that area. So they had no choice but to find an upland area where they could treat it. But unfortunately, it's lost too. So we're looking at that pump station as a potential source of water. We're more interested in the groundwater portion of it than the stormwater, but we're going to look at both. So that's one of the things we're looking at in the study. So I just thought if there's any questions on that. I provided you trends for as you know, we're in a outdoor water ban, and we issued last month. And that was because of we're in a moderate drought as a region. We have had some rainfall, and it's has shown to be impactful to the reservoir, where we're maintaining. We're not dropping like we were. We were dropping very quickly. We never recovered from last summer. So we are transferring water from South Pond. We have that pump station. So we've transferred almost 10 million gallons to supplement our supply. So that's working as well. We'll continue to monitor to see if it's something we can lift. But I mean, we are in the summer months, and I do want to report, just to give you an idea, during the 4th of July weekend, we were pumping almost 400,000 gallons a day in demand. Just so you understand, our safe yield is 185,000 gallons a day that we can safely withdraw from the reservoir and have adequate supply. But that's through a calendar year. I don't want to alarm you too much, but there's 4 or 5 months that we exceed that safe yield. But when you're seeing close to 400,000 gallons, I mean, that's a lot of water. But it's summer and we understand it was beautiful.
Most we've ever done? Oh.
That's a typical July 4th is really, especially on a weekend.
Okay.
You know, that
Yeah.
the plant is capable of treating up to 500,000 gallons,
That's where I was saying
Yeah.
5, yeah.
but we're back down below 300,000 on average this past weekend we had. So, but it's,
Well, I think it's important that you mentioned that just because we've had that rain, we still need to monitor our usage.
well, if you look at the rainfall from last year, that column for the rainfall, we were
Right.
12 inches below
Mhm.
Right.
for the entire year.
And if-
Now we're even below, 3 inches or so for this year. So if you, this drought has been through last summer.
Right.
It's going, right through the winter, even after the blizzard. I mean, the blizzard had some impact, but it didn't recover.
Didn't, but I mean,
Yes.
I've had people ask me after we got that rain, that first rain,
Yeah.
that we had-
is it okay now? Is the ban lifted? No, it's not.
Right.
So
I
that's
mean,
why
we still have
it's
to be
good that you mentioned-
cautious,
Oh,
be
absolutely.
going. Most drier months are August, September, even into early October. It can be.
When you look at 2025's reservoir level, we were
Yeah.
low since July.
Yeah, we never recovered,
We never recovered. Yeah.
never
actually,
spilled over.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Very low.
it's important for people on wells too to understand that this, I mean, even having the rain does not, it needs to be a prolonged period. And these intense rainfalls do not produce the groundwater. I mean, it's most of it ends up being runoff, as you know. So
Are we warning people about water usage when we find out that they're improperly using water?
we have been out, Ed's been out. I
Yeah.
mean, we've been going to people's houses and
Okay,
when we
good.
get a complaint, we're
We're
going
yeah.
out.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, it's a serious thing and people need to follow the rules.
Well, one of the things to remember is that there are folks in town who do have wells. They have,
Fair enough.
yeah, who have their
I
own
understand that.
wells that
Yeah.
they use for landscape. I know I've gotten people to complaining about different people I know.
Yeah.
Different people in my neighborhood who seem to be watering stuff and turns out they have wells.
Yep. No, that's okay. But I mean, when they're not following the rules, we need to
Mhm.
make sure we're reminding them.
The water meter project we started at the end of June. We were over 200 meters to install to date. There's only one person performing and he's doing a great job. I just wanted to report that it is progressing and we're getting a lot of interest and feedback and making sure that people are making appointments and every day is full of appointments. So it's going well. We have 1,500 to do. So, I mean, we're getting there. I mean, we have to, this money there does expire. So there is some wish to finish in October. I've reported to you that we received our assent. We're waiting on a contractor to help us with the clearing next to the Newport Bridge, and that is to gain access to the outfall for that inspection that we'll be performing in August to determine the need, the repair needs for our outfall in the bay. And we had a meeting, Weston and Sampson, just to review the facilities plan and come up with our response to DEM comments. There's some comments I'm interested to talk to them about. One is the average, increasing the average of our loading based on projected build out in the system and looking at maximum days, not average days during the month for our treatment facility. As I reported to you, that could have an impact on our permit. So they're going to adjust numbers based on maximum days, not average days. So I'll continue to report that to you. But I do want to just hand out, so we're working on our budget, Tina and Ed and I just had a handout. Oh, one other thing, that the consumer confidence report is in your packet. And you see that goes out every year, and it reports the prior year's water quality data just for all of our customers to receive. But I do want one new thing in the table is the PFAS. So we're reporting that, and we're continuing to sample that. And in fact, not DEM, Department of Health is doing the samples, and you can see the values, 1.6, 1.49, 1.77. So the threshold that the Department of Health has set is 4, and this is parts per trillion, just so you know. So we're actually below 2. Anything below 2, they almost find as that it's non-detectable, even though that the lab can detect below 2, but they're looking at those. So I just wanted to make sure that that you notice that, and that's a new thing that's added to our table, and we'll continue to report that. But our water is safe from PFAS. So I just wanted to
That's good.
give you that.
Thanks for pointing that out. I missed that detail.
That was something that the Department of Health is asking water suppliers to add. This is our capital projects. Sorry, but I thought
Thank you.
this might be helpful. Thank you, Mike. So these are infrastructure improvement projects that we're in the middle of or we're working on. These are in the planning and engineering stages that we're working towards. So we are responsible for clean water infrastructure replacement plan submission. It's a 5 to 20-year plan of water. And these are some of the projects, some of the larger projects. So we're just for everyone that's here. So in the water, we're looking at distribution projects. And one is a 3,000 linear foot water main in North Road from this intersection right here going towards the water plant. And then 3,000 linear feet of water main going west on Narragansett Avenue. Those projects, we received the grant from the EPA. And right now we're tied up in getting through cultural resources approval on that. Though the estimate on those projects, 2.5 each, so $5 million in that project. Service line replacement program is listed as 750,000. That is yet to be determined, but we're anticipating less than 100 steel lines that are out there. So Department of Health will require us to come up with a plan, meaning that us as a water supplier, all of the steel lines that we find or we inventory, we will be required to replace on our end, meaning from the main to the property line. And then the homeowner will have to make some decisions on their property. So anything that we find is steel. And then with the meter replacement program, we're going to have 100% inventory now. So once we have that inventory, we have to develop a plan. So we've put in, it's anywhere $5,000 to 10, depending on the complexity and if it's a state road. We're anticipating that. Cast iron distribution mains, so about 40% of our water distribution of 20 miles is cast iron. Those are the older pipes. That's a program I'd like to get off the ground, that we start looking at cleaning and lining those and replacing hydrants, and that I have as $1 million. And then the generator, I've put a cost of $260,000. That's a real cost. So those are the big ticket items for water. Wastewater improvement projects, as you know, so 2023, we had debt come off from projects that were done in the early 2000s for the wastewater, which included collection system, pump stations, and the treatment plant. So we are required to do a facilities plan update every 20 years with DEM. We started that process in 2023. We're still in that process, getting that approved. But based on the asset and evaluation of the evaluation of wastewater assets that we did in 2023, which was presented to you. It outlined all of the needs in the system. And so the wastewater treatment facility improvements, we're looking at $8 million. Pump station improvements, $2 million. Wastewater collection system improvements, and this is for, we've done about a half of the system of going out and looking and doing closed circuit television inspections, and that's about $1 million. And then the outfall has yet to be determined, but I've put in a placeholder $500,000 or more. I mean, it's out and under, it's in the bay. So if that work is expensive, you know. And then the pump station emergency generator, which also failed during the blizzard, it's 70,000. So I know,
Can I ask a question
sure,
about
of course,
the wastewater outfall improvements? These are the things in the East Passage where we had to have
diffusers.
diffusers. Okay.
Yep, that were missing in our
Yep.
inspection.
Yep. So we think, if I remember correctly, it was more in the like low multiple millions. Do we think it's probably going to be less?
I'm being optimistic. I'm
Okay.
thinking in this more detailed inspection that we're going to do with the divers, and they're going to go down with the jet, and they're going to try to
Okay.
find the openings.
Yep.
We believe that there's still something attached to the pipe, and hoping that we can attach something to that.
I see. Okay.
A T that
Yep.
has, you know, the T flange is still there.
Yep. Yep.
So that it's just the work beneath the bay, as you can imagine. I mean, you're dealing with
No, it's
Yeah.
perfectly fine. I
40
was
feet of water. So, I mean,
Yeah.
so
I was maybe hoping it was going to be less, but it sounds like it's could be optimistic, $500,000 to $1 million, but it could be more. And
Well,
we need
this
to wait.
reason-
We need to wait for your report.
it's more detailed.
Yeah.
Inspection approaches 100,000.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, 5 divers, boats,
Mhm.
and then of course on the land side, which is the truck mounted and camera, and there's multiple inspections that are, and cleaning and trying to find, you know, things below the mud line. So it's going to take some effort.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Mike?
So the purpose, I mean, we wanted to outline that we're going through the process. I know there's an election coming and there'll be a changeover, but a lot of these things will be, if we're going to bond
Right?
for future projects, including, so these things we'll have to talk about coming towards the budget, not only for us, but the town.
Right.
Because when a bond, even on the water and sewer side, it ends up going to financial town meeting.
The town supports the bond. I mean, yeah, the town puts the bond out there.
Yeah.
Right. One question, which is interesting because not everybody is served obviously by the water, but, what on the water side, that the 3,000 linear feet where we believe we have federal money to do that, which
Mhm.
is the whole reason why it's being held up in part because
Correct.
it goes through the Department of Interior, I think, or whatever, or EPA, I guess.
EPA.
And then, so we believe we have some resources for that. Are there similar, and I know that the infrastructure bank always often supports water infrastructure. Does it support wastewater infrastructure also?
It
Is
does,
that-
but it comes with its own set of rules, and
Right. Oh, okay. I see what,
But
same.
we've been
difference.
successful in the past with bonding on our own. I
Okay.
mean, I'm not sure what the climate will be
Yeah.
when we go out. I mean, Tina can talk about that, but
The economic
make-
climate, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
so,
Right.
right. Any questions on that?
Yeah, just the time horizon. I mean, I know it says it's the plans from 5 to 20 years. Like,
Yes.
do we have, like, pacing wise, it might be helpful just in future conversations and probably even the next council to know, like, is this a 10+ year horizon or is it more near term? Just as we think about staggering.
In the wastewater, it's more the near term. As you can recall, there was the needs evaluation that
Right.
was performed. They also did a 0 to 5 year and then a longer range plan. The 0 to 5 is where we're tackling these immediate needs in the wastewater. You know, we're 20 years removed, and some of these projects were deferred 20 years ago because of lack of funding. So we focused our efforts on pipe and pumps and all the equipment. but the building was deferred.
Yep.
So in this week, we're identifying that the need of the building is definitely a need.
Yep.
As well as other things that have aged and,
Yeah, that makes sense. I think
So-
just given the magnitude of the spend, it would be helpful if we could provide a short summary of these items for the
course.
community, and some sense of timing.
Yeah.
Because they're significant dollars.
they are.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, while you're up there on the next agenda item, do you know anything about that? I mean, I don't see Denise here tonight, or maybe, maybe Tina knows. I'm not sure. We didn't get a whole lot of information. Yes, the bill.
The Hammett Court thing?
Folks from Looking Upwards are here, though. too.
Okay, yep.
Yep.
Oh, well, I mean, I read the letter, so. Hi, could you just give us your name and address?
Hi, I'm Carrie Miranda. I'm the Executive Director of Looking Upwards. Our main office is 1184 East Main Road in Portsmouth, but we own and operate 2 and 3 Hammett Court.
Thank you.
And this is Don Hughes. He is our maintenance director.
I'm the property manager.
And you're the one that wrote the letter, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, okay, okay. So I just, usually we see the bill and we, have more explanation. Oh,
Oh.
okay.
So back in the March, when we were doing our March billing, we did a read, and the read was extremely high for Looking Upwards. It was
Yeah, there's
over
96
196,000
gallons.
gallons, correct. So at that time, we went out, had the water department go out and do a reread. And so within the week or two from the actual read, which happened probably around March 9th, to when we went out and to do a reread around the 16th, when we're in the billing process, the number dropped down to a regular usage. So it was certainly water that was used or whatever was distributed to that property at that time frame. We had Mike looked at it, Mark Robertson, Jim, to try to see if there was anything. But anyways, he can take it from there.
But so so 196,000 gallons were used in,
3 months.
over the winter in the
Yes.
3-month
Was it
period.
3
and then
months? Yeah.
So a lot of times when you get this, you have a property owner that comes in and says, we had a broken pipe.
Right.
We had this fall. There's
There's 5 apartments there, 3
Get
of them were out.
In front
Yeah,
of the
I would-
mic.
yeah.
You need to use the mic.
Yeah, 5 apartments there, 3 of them were occupied, 2 of them were empty. I'm not sure where 500,000 gallons of water went.
We could do this together. We're tag teaming. We did find one toilet that was an apartment that was vacated that was running. So I don't know that would make that much water.
It can use tremendous amount of damage if it's running. I mean, we did our leak detectors, we were absolutely every to try to help to see what it was.
We were ready to get a structural engineer to come in and look to see if there's something going on underneath or pipes or whatever, but it then dropped back down. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Did you fix the toilet?
No, yeah.
So that might explain the issue.
Wow. That
I
much?
mean, I'm
With running toilet. I don't-
yeah.
Right.
I mean, the hard thing here, I mean, I'll just speak, I don't want to speak of everybody. The water was used and the water went into the sewer. I really don't know what to do.
I was calling attention specifically to the winter, it was during the winter months. So I was really skeptical over the idea that this kind of damage could have happened as a result of, we'll say, one running toilet. At the time, we really didn't realize that there was a toilet running at that time until I had found out afterwards and it was already been repaired. However, like I said, it was the winter time, now that we had the large storm and stuff like that, and everything was just kind of hectic. Wire. So I figured just call attention to it and see what could be done.
Yeah, we're just asking to see if there's relief that we could get from the town for at least a portion of that amount as,
How much is it?
well, it's $12,000.
And that's,
Is that with the water?
Water
Is that with sewer? What?
Right.
Okay.
And this is not an instance of well, we don't believe it's an instance of a broken pipe, right? You don't know that it's a broken pipe,
Whatever it is. it's fixed.
whatever it was,
Don't have an answer,
Yeah.
except for I just don't know.
except for the toilet.
I can't see where half a million gallons of water. I would have realized that it was there if it was there.
Well, it's not a half
I just don't
million.
know.
It's not a half million.
Is the apartment vacant? Like there's no one renting it or occupying it? So, okay.
And that's still the case now? Still vacant or?
I don't
Oh,
know.
no, they're full now. Yep.
And so since March, when did they finally get rented?
It was after the winter, so it must have been just around March.
Okay, so since then it's gone back to normal.
We actually bought our reeds, which like I said, is probably about the second week of March. And, you know, it was about, you know, we saw, you know, went out, did some rereads. Within that 2-week time period, it had already gone to whatever it was, you know, just in that time period, didn't expand over. So it wasn't like we were looking for anything there. So you might have, not sure when you fixed the toilet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an answer exactly what the date was.
I mean, that would be helpful to know.
Yeah.
Like if you fix the toilet and the reeds went down.
Yes, I spoke with Denise.
You know,
Yeah, she's very
they
nice.
fixed it then when we went out after. According to our notes, we went out and did a reread and whatever it was.
Yeah.
Subsided. Went back, the last building was back on normal.
It was back to baseline.
Yeah.
We understand it could be that. We're not 100% certain. However, we're just wondering if we could.
Right. I guess what I'm thinking is we have a remedy for this, so to speak. We have a solution that we usually, not a
terms of
solution,
sewer.
it's in terms of sewer, right?
But that,
So I don't know how we can,
but I think what Eddie's trying to get at is it's gone through the sewer. It did go through the sewer.
yeah, I know. It was,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
but I
So-
know,
You know what I-
given
yeah.
what Looking Upwards represents in the community, and also, you know, you are a nonprofit that does really great work. I share your interest in finding a remedy, but I think we need more information, like other bills and current bills and things like that.
Right, what does the baseline normally look like?
It was,
I think Tina might have that.
Yeah,
She's,
maybe we just.
it was-
Or-
If it might be helpful for the commission, so if we could just give us some time to come back with more
Yeah.
comprehensive information for you, I think is what you're looking for.
Yep.
Maybe a further conversation with the
Right.
property owners. But by all accounts, it does appear that the water went through the meter. No catastrophic event, as have been presented in the past. Did go into the sewer, presumably. There's no evidence that it did not. So we could do a little bit of work to give you a history and where we are currently and give you a better idea of current.
I think
use
that
at
would
the
be
next
helpful.
meeting.
Thank you.
So, okay, we'll see
it's
you
fine.
next time.
Yeah. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You're welcome. All right, next. Next, we have the Jamestown Water Consumer Confidence Report. Do we have to vote on that, Peter? Do we need to vote on the Consumer Confidence Report? No, okay. All right. No unfinished business, no new business. Brings us to the consent agenda. Does anybody want to?
Can I just have one question?
Sure.
Tina, the financials for the water and sewer, is it a July to June fiscal that's in the report? So did we finish the year with a surplus of cash?
That would have been
We
it.
never finished the year. in
No,
a
no.
surplus.
Well, it was a pretty significant surplus, so that's why I was asking the
Right,
question.
so right now, we're still in, well, you only see the expense side of things that are right there for the.
Yeah,
water
the
and
performance of budget was like 74%
Right,
and
so-
change.
What happens is all the bills that are coming in right now for June have not been paid.
Right.
Oh, okay.
As of that, so we'll get a better picture probably around in the September
Okay.
timeframe.
I was super hopeful that we had a bunch of cash. So
Yeah, I mean,
anyway.
we are trending, I'm starting to look at some things, we are trending a little more positively than we did the year before.
Yep.
But you know, again, we did have a couple of big hits with the rental for the generator on both the water side and the sewer side, looking at some of those expenses, but you know. so-
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn, sitting as the Board of Water and Sewer Commission.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. Before we go on, we have some consultancy, we have some items that we might want to push up the agenda, is that correct?
Yes.
You want to recommend?
Under new business, it would be item F. I would just ask that when you get to new business, maybe you move that to the beginning of your new business.
Oh, okay, in new business.
In new business.
Correct.
yes.
Okay, I understand. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to open forum for the regular portion of the meeting. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Yes, come on up.
Good evening, Mary Breimer, 80 West Reach Drive. I've been wanting to come speak, or at least ask Ms. Meager. I'm sorry,
It's pronounced Maher.
I'm sorry, I apologize. In the Jamestown Press on June 18th, you were quoted. One of the dilemmas of a democracy is that the stupid voters can also vote. We don't require literacy tests.
Yes. Peter,
And
can I respond?
Well,
to that?
I was hoping that you would in
Yeah.
a conversational manner, because I thought it was an interesting selection of words. As you know, I've previously sat on a town council for a few terms, and I understand how incredibly difficult it is. And in a moment, you say something that's captured, and if you could go back and do it again. So I would love for you to tell me what you meant and what you would say if you had a second go.
What I think is that the stupid person involved here was me in my choice of words. And what I should have done is follow Mr. Webster's choice of words, which was the uninformed voter.
Okay.
And so that's what I meant.
Okay.
And it was
I
a
appreciate you for-
a very bad choice of words.
Well, I
Thank you.
appreciate you, and I've been cringing since it was printed, because I'm thinking, where did that come from? And you don't always get the opportunity to go back and restate with consideration. My second part of this is that you're a fan of the town meeting, the town financial meeting, and that you were appalled that there would be a lack of bravery for people to vote publicly. And what I would like to share with you, having attended a few of these, is that the optic in the room that evening was terrible. There was less voter turnout than the previous year. Obviously, the public was emotionally charged to turn out for the Fort Getty vote. But when you see a bunch of uniformed firemen standing all around the room for their bond that they want to win, low voter turnout, a lot of senior citizens, and the most appalling thing to me is the town photographer wearing a T-shirt pro fire truck. Now, I don't mind the fire department receiving the fire truck. What I do mind is it going out to bond, because there's only been 3 municipalities in this entire state in the last 5 years that have used bonding to pay for the apparatus. We've gone to firefighter funds. There's rescue reserve funds where we bill the hospitals or the patient for the ambulance ride to the hospital for non-residents. There's surplus. So did it need to go to bond? I disagree. Do we need it? Maybe not, because we don't really send mutual aid over either bridge. Mutual aid comes to us, and we do have apparatus that works. More often than not, the mutual aid comes this side. So it doesn't matter whether they received it or not. The chief sent out a request for funds a couple of years ago. My husband said, give him $100. I gave him $200. This is not an anti-firefighter, but when I have to sit in a room and publicly do yes or no, my reasons are very educated for why it's yes or no. I'm emotionally divorced from whether or not it's done. But year over year, $300, $600 a year that compounds, even if the last fire engine ladder was paid for with a bond, where did the cash flow go? I understand everything goes up. I'm a financial planner. I get it. The cost of living is astronomically high, higher than it's ever been in my entire life. I get that. But did it need to go to bond? And that was why we were no vote. What was also shocking to me as a resident is that 3 other people, strangers in the room, came up to my husband and I and asked us, what the hell is going on here? We've never been to one of these meetings. You seem like you know what's going on. That's disturbing to me. Now, that's voter lack of participation, but I just want you to understand from the voter side, sitting out in the aisle, but that's what happened. And so I'm not upset that the fire department is getting their apparatus upgraded, but when we have a cable line to serve everybody on the island that needs to be replaced, I would have much rather bonded for that generator and everything that needs to be repaired so that we have consistent power. I'm much happier to bond for that than for the fire engine. So I felt the need to come out and speak for those that might have different political views. And thank you for the humility. And I loved what you said that night. Dirt is cheap until you try to move it. Yes, ma'am, you are correct. It is true. And I appreciate all of you. And it's not a pleasant job to sit up there with social media and everything else. You feel like you're just getting, annihilated all the time. And I know that 4 out of 5 of you aren't running again. And my last piece, I know that a passion of yours has been for affordable housing. And I hear you, but there's a very easy thing, and you might be able to get it in before your term is over. Just ban short-term rentals. There's several other communities that do it. That's 100 units, single-family residences that come back into the market here. And if the owners don't like just renting it out 12 months, let them sell it. And I really don't care if they take a loss at this point, because everybody, all of our children, everybody is paying these higher rates. It's the prices are out of control. So the way that you get around that is legislatively. And that's fine, but I don't think anybody's going to cry. I don't think that these people are resident voters here for the most part. They're probably out of towners. So go ahead and say no. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you.
I just want to correct one thing. We don't have a town photographer. There's a photographer of the Jamestown Press, and she is a member of the fire department.
Okay, is there anyone else that would like to? Sure, come on up. Oh, I'm sorry, I was pointing at you. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Yes.
My name's Lonnie Hilton Kelly, and I've been.
I don't
I'm
think,
sorry, can
I
you
don't think
repeat your
Roberta heard
name?
you. Could you just put the mic up a little,
Oh,
bit, repeat that? Thank you.
My name's Lonnie Hilton Kelly. I've been on the island since 1970 when I was born. My grandparents have been here. My parents have been here. And I just wanted to bring one thing up, that the proposal of the structure on Heads Beach, I feel like it would be a terrible option due to the fact that it's very natural there. We grew up there crabbing and fishing and clamming, swimming, and you bring an umbrella or a tent. I just feel like it would be making it very unnatural, more of a city type environment as opposed to the beautiful setting that it is. And I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
For that.
Thank you. Paul?
Just as a member of the fire department. I'm
Your name and
by
address.
Paul Sprague, 11 Mass Street. A member of the fire department. I do want to clarify that we do get called out for mutual aid off the island regularly. The fire truck has been called out to Newport. 3rd Street was a big fire that happened recently. Castle Hill was a big fire that happened recently. We use the ladder truck for those. It happens frequently. Tanker trucks are called off the island. So the bond helps us help other communities. I just wanted to clarify that.
There was a second thing I wanted to say, and that was it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? No? Oh, yes. No, it's open forum, so you can talk about anything. We might not be able to respond, but can you put that? Yeah.
Yes, for
Your
sure.
name and address, please.
Robin White, and it's 179 Narragansett Avenue. And again, I thank you guys for the hard work you do. I know you put a lot of time and effort into your life to do this, so thank you. I'm here to promote year-long resident access at Fort Getty, our only town park that we have. Residents really see a better future now that the infrastructure there is at its life's end, and we're at an inflection point that we need to make a decision. Are we going to keep it the way it is? Or are we going to make it better? A community space for everybody all year? Or are we going to keep it as it is with a scabby hill and unwelcome residents? I hope that, I know you guys are not running again, but I hope that you can see how much better it can be Mary, how much better that beautiful peninsula can be with residents and community meandering in natural, beautiful space that that peninsula is. We are the only town on the eastern seaboard that rents its town park out in this manner. The only town. And in the whole country, there's probably only about 20 town parks that are done, mostly in places in the Midwest like Nebraska and Oklahoma. Nobody on the eastern seaboard does this with their town park. So just, I guess, food for thought, and we love our park. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes.
Robert Peckham, East Shore Road, Fort Getty. I've been here since 1974, either working or living here. And I cannot believe the condition that Fort Getty Campground was in on Memorial Day when the campers came. The grass behind the pavilion was cut, the tent campers were cut, and of course, CISF, their grass gets cut regularly. The campsites rather, were a good 7 to 8 inches high. That was on Friday. When I came back on Monday, it still hadn't been cut. On Tuesday morning, I came back, it hadn't been cut. I went home, got my trailer and riding mower, and I was gonna cut the campsites. It's not bad enough that they have to deal with dog poop when they get there, but now the sites aren't even mowed. This is deplorable. And there's no excuse for it. Every year, we seem to be giving the off-leash dog walkers more time at the expense of the RVers, and including last year, or this year, they got another 6 days, and the RVers had to pay $100 to make up for that difference. That's not right. I don't believe it's right. I don't want to bash CISF because I think they do a great job with kids. But the safety conditions with the parents that are dropping their kids off and picking them up, they just speed there. I had a woman pass me by the lower bathrooms so she could drop her kid off and then speed back out. And I know the chief of police has tried addressing this issue and they can't be there all the time, but we need to do something. It's not CISF's fault, but something needs to be done. I'm not sure if it's speed bumps or something. There's been a lot of talk by residents that people can't go to Fort Getty. I go there every day that I'm not home, twice a day with my dog. And the present dog I have for the last 6 years, in the morning and again at night. When the dog walkers, and the dog walkers are good people and their dogs are good people. That's not my issue. It's that they don't do what they're supposed to do. They don't pick up after them, and the dogs are wandering around, they're jumping on your cars or whatever. But I don't think the RVers should pay for that at the expense, you know. I've camped, my wife and I have camped from Maine to Myrtle Beach. I've never seen a campground in such deplorable condition. Never. Something has to, I know they're trying to address that, and I get it, and it's hard because you got so many different groups. Now you have the Friends of Fort Getty. But we can't let this happen. I go through there in the morning. These RVs up there are so friendly. It's unbelievable. They'll ask you, do you want something to eat? They call my dog's name all the time. They're great people. The dog walkers at times have told me that I'm number one because I drive around at Fort Getty, and I don't feel I should be allowed to do that. Again, they are good people, and their dogs are good, but maybe we had to rein that in a little bit. As far, I'm not sure that I've heard so many things about 10-year waiting lists, 20-year waiting lists, and now 25-year waiting lists. However, there's been 10 vacant campsites up there this summer. So if there's a waiting list, are we scaring our RV friends away? I don't know the answer to that, but that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Yes.
Land Lippincott, 1243 North Main. Some of my comments are pertinent. That's why I'm going to say them now. So CISF, I do have a solution for the speeding at the guardhouse. But I'm going to follow up on my 2025 report on safety at the boat ramp. From what I've witnessed and others have witnessed, it has not improved. I saw catamaran here, catamaran there, oyster barge hooked up to the truck. The guys were moving cargo. Each counselor had maybe their 6 kids. The counselors were focused on the boats to bring the boats back up shore. The kids were running in front of the oyster guys. They couldn't run through them and back. Sometimes that one counselor had, say, 2 kids there. All the others were at the other side. They were jumping in the water and swimming around. And little girl running right in front of the truck. The truck wasn't moving, but still, the counselors were focused on the boat. They weren't focused on the kids. Another, just this last week, a ranger had to intervene in the new John Deere ATV. He had to place his John Deere behind the fisherman who was trying to launch his boat because all of the catamarans were trying to launch. And because he was there, everyone stood and kind of waited their turn. But if the ranger hadn't been there, it was just chaos. And again, I'll have more another time about CISF analysis, but I don't think they're necessarily paying for ranger services, and that's not necessarily in their job description. A ranger reported that a dark blue Porsche SUV blasted through the guardhouse. I have kids, CISF. And he yelled at the driver, who ignored him and went blasting past. Nobody else really does that. My recommendation is that the cars that are used to drop off and pick up CISF children should have a special CISF sticker. All right, so that they have to stop and show the person in the guardhouse that they belong to CISF. And perhaps if they are Jamestown residents, I guess have already paid for their sticker, but if they're non-resident, then they should pay for the sticker. But that might hopefully get them to slow down at that spot where there are sometimes a lot of people. And the revenue can be used towards the maintenance of the park. Also want to address, y'all, I know some people behind me who would love, it's really not, I know what your target number is on the RVs. Question is really RVs or no RVs. I've lived there for 6 years, guys. I know what goes on, okay? If the RVs are gone and the town loses that revenue, that place will be a weed and tick and dog poop infested park. They cannot even, with the $500,000 they have, which goes to most of the other parks and rec, they cannot manage to mow all the spaces now. I went 2 weeks without being mowed. So now I hire my own mowing service, $20, 17 weeks, $340. I also have, I'm going to add it to my letter, all the extra costs that I incur. The mowing, septic service is $595 for the season. My fine water filter is $450 for the season. My Camco filter is $136 for the season. My Evo filter is $80 for the season. I pay $1,600 a season just to have clean water, my septic dumped, and mowing. Those are all normally covered by other, covered at other campgrounds for the fees. So when you get into deciding what we're going to pay, this is going to, I'm going to make it, discuss this. And yeah, I just want to know, yeah, I mentioned I did do, I was there between snowstorms. There's a defined mode roads. I counted all the poops and all the dog walkers were looking at me and they were really pissed off. I'm like, well, why not? You're here. And the snow is melting and the poop is melting over the road. So you had to walk through it. Okay. So I have the data. Made a reasonable conservative estimate that the off-leash dog walkers leave about a ton of poop at Fort Getty, which leave roundworms, hookworms, giardia, cryptosporidium, etc. And dogs are mammals. Humans are mammals. It's not clear why the town council finds the excrement of one species acceptable over another. All right, and the EPA classifies it as non-point source pollution. That big rain there Saturday night and Sunday, imagine all that poo running down into the water where the CISF kids swim. So those are some thoughts for your consideration.
Thank you. And thank you for your letter. Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? No? Okay. All right, we'll move on then. I guess the next thing we're going to discuss is our meeting schedule. That's why I have my calendar.
Yeah, no, I think probably this is on because of me, because I was wondering if we needed any additional time for, particularly to discuss Fort Getty, and I know it's difficult for you time-wise, or what might be easier for you.
So we have one scheduled in August for August 17th.
Yep.
And following that one would be, the next one would be September 7th.
I think that's probably actually September 8th.
What's that?
The date is wrong there. Yep. It is Labor Day.
Oh, it says Tuesday the 7th. I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
just,
It's a miss. Yeah,
It's
that's,
the primary day, isn't it?
so it should be the 8th. That's fine.
Oh. Oh, what?
What? Oh, the primary? Okay, so we're gonna do that one. Okay, so any discussion about whether we need more, whether we want more in August?
I think maybe we can make that determination perhaps. I think we're going to be talking about Fort Getty today, so
After this evening?
after, yeah, thank you
Okay.
for considering it.
Anyone else? Comments? No? Okay, we'll just wait and see. Yeah, you okay with that? Okay. All right, next, public hearings. We'll entertain a motion to go into, to sit as the Alcohol Beverage Licensing Board.
So moved?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we have an applicant for a Class BV victualler license, IRMW LLC, doing business as Next Door Wine Bar, 7 East Ferry Wharf.
This is just a request to advertise.
Oh,
the
sorry.
public hearing.
Oh, okay.
Okay, just a request to advertise. Okay, so
I
Move.
think they're actually here.
they are, and that's what got me a little distracted.
That's why
Yeah.
they're back there laughing.
Yeah.
So I think I would move to advertise this request.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, thank
Is
you.
there anything that you wanted to say? Looked like you were,
Yeah, I think you should after you've been sitting there smiling at us all
Yeah,
night.
but-
Come on.
at least let us know.
Come
what
on,
you're doing.
Amelia. No, I think it's exciting. No, come on up. Say your name and address if you would, please.
Okay, I'm Amelia Wilson, 24 Grinnell Street. That's my dad back there. We own Grapes and Gourmet, and so we're trying to open a little wine bar next week. Light app, cool bottles of wines, small curated cocktail list, be your own draft. And so, yeah, we're really excited, and I hope we can make this happen. The town has been so helpful. Roberta has sorted through a lot of annoying emails. So, I just would appreciate it. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, we'll be seeing you again soon, I'm sure. Thank you. You're welcome. Okay, now I will entertain a motion to adjourn as the Alcohol Beverage Licensing Board.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, I'm going to recuse for this one.
All right, next up, we got a one-day event entertainment license. All right, here you go. This is for Beavertail Lighthouse Museum Association for Night for the Light on August 9th at Fort Getty at the Pavilion. So there's a request here as well to waive the fees, as we traditionally have done for them and for other nonprofits, to rent the use of Fort Getty for this event. So I
Move to approve the request to waive the fees and on August 9th, and I hope you have a wonderful time.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, come on back, Nancy. All right, and I think we're on to the council administrator solicitor reports.
Good evening. Just a number of items to report on. One, which is not included in my written report, is we received notification that we are receiving a $50,000 grant to purchase a monitor for the EMS staff at the fire department. That's through you've heard a lot about the rural healthcare funding that's come from the federal government. That money's getting funneled through the Department of Health. There's $100+ million coming to the state of Rhode Island. Candidly, I'm not certain where the balance of that is, but we're the recipient of $50,000 of that funding.
And it's for, can you explain?
It'd be a monitor that the EMS and EMTs and paramedics use.
A heart monitor.
Right, so it's a heart
Oh,
monitor,
oh,
very expensive
okay.
piece of equipment, which was programmed in our capital budget over the next few years, but we're able to escalate and move that up
Great.
in terms of our purchasing. As Mike alluded to, certainly as the media is covered related to the February 26th blizzard, we had prepared to submit a reimbursement request of about $361,000 through FEMA. Even if it was granted through FEMA, there's no guarantee that we receive all or part of that. There's different categories. For example, when we submit, and Tina does the lion's share of that work, is related to regular pay, for example, overtime pay. We get an equipment cost just because we use a plow truck with a sander. There's a fee for that. We use a loader. There's a fee for that, along with the operators. So there's no guarantee of that. Our overtime costs related to that event was just shy of $24,000. The largest expense, which we were prepared to submit for, again, no guarantee whether that would have been covered or not, was related to the loss of 2 generators. Mike already touched on that. One was at the water treatment plant and one was at a sewer substation. And as we indicated, we are pursuing both of those through our insurance carrier to see if we have coverage for those items. Property tax rate. So the staff has certified the tax roll. The tax rate is set at $581 per thousand. So they'll start preparing the tax bills to be sent out in the coming weeks. Under your new business is the East Ferry lease. That current lease is set to expire along with its extension at the end of this calendar year. That'll come up under new business. And lastly, this has gotten a little bit of media coverage, and the staff has certainly been made aware of this related to Rhode Island Energy. So sometime the beginning of the summer, Rhode Island Energy discovered that their primary feed for electrical power coming to the island, that cable had failed. So it had reverted to the redundant cable that was in place. They went through a very expedited process in terms of permitting, engineering, but it left us with no redundant power, right? So we relied on that one redundant cable, if you will. Really tremendous credit to Rhode Island Energy in their response in getting the engineering done, the response of permitting through Army Corps of Engineers, CRMC, DEM, tremendous effort to replace an underwater cable that comes from the east. While that was all going on, they also deployed and engineered a complete backup generator system on Tashtasic. So in the event that that secondary cable failed, they were in a position to operate a generator power station there that would empower the entire island without interruption. So really a tremendous effort, both engineering, fiscally, the investment that they made there to make that happen is really commendable to Rhode Island Energy to provide a reliable energy source for us. So I very much appreciate that.
As I understand it, I think there used to be generators there and that provided the backup for, yeah. So I think it's great that they returned us to that condition. That's terrific.
Yeah, they will not maintain those generators, so don't get your hopes up. Those generators will be, they're temporary. They
Oh,
are, it was a
damn.
temporary emergency measure that they put in place. There's 14 1 megawatt generators
Generators, yeah.
there. I can't imagine the capital investment that would have to occur if that were a permanent solution, so
Wouldn't that be great?
it would be.
Do we know what
Um,
caused the cable failure?
Say it again, please?
Do we know what caused the failure?
No.
Yeah,
And
figure out as last time.
right.
And then on the FEMA stuff, was it just Jamestown or was it the whole region?
The whole region.
The whole region?
For FEMA, it was the entire state of
The
Rhode
entire
Island.
state of Rhode Island. Okay.
The other, I would like to point out, Ms. Brimmer isn't here again, but that was the other thing I wanted to say was that that cable belongs to Rhode Island Energy. There is no, we would not be paying through a bond for that replacement of that cable or the investment, as you described, of the generator. So I just would like to clarify that that would not have happened.
Yeah, the electrical service is a public utility that's provided by Rhode Island Energy, where we, like everybody else, are merely a customer of theirs.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the unfinished business. And so Mary, I believe that this is your item.
So I proposed a charter review committee, kind of an, much like when we were looking at the sanctuary proposal. We recognized that our charter needed remedying. Looking at the possibility of changing from a financial town meeting, at which Dennis eloquently noted, what about the uninformed voter? And as we've already discussed, somebody said something dumb. That was me. And so this would create a charter review committee of either 5 or 7 people. It says that the vice president would be a voting member if you should want to be, I guess. And I just wondered if council feels that this is appropriate. I would note that we hope to get a report from this committee on October 19th. That's at the very end of our term, quite obviously, for those of us who are leaving. And that was intentional because I felt that it would be good if we could read what might be vetted, might be developed, and then we could look at it, but then it would leave it to the next council to also vet it. So you have 2 different councils of significant differences in personnel. I mean, only one will remain. I know, sorry. But, so I thought that was an appropriate methodology. And so I would recommend that we at least, perhaps the conclusion of this group will be not to change it, or to provide improvements to it. But I would recommend, I make the motion to establish a charter review committee. I would probably recommend 5 people.
Okay, instead of 7?
I'm not.
Oh, 5 to 7, I see.
Yeah, I frankly would see what the interest is, but we also would need to appoint people to this rather quickly so that they can fulfill the charge as it's been described.
Do you want to read this?
Sure. The resolution says, whereas the Jamestown Charter, Article 12, Section 1201, amendment of charter states that the town council of the town of Jamestown shall appoint a special charter review committee whenever it is deemed necessary. And whereas the town council of the town of Jamestown has determined that it is prudent and necessary to appoint a special charter review committee. And whereas the Charter Review Committee shall, within 45 days of its appointment, but no later than October 19th, 2026, submit to the Town Council a report with its recommendations for amendments, additions, or deletions of an all-day referendum to replace the voting part of the financial town meeting, and now therefore be it resolved that we, the Town Council of the Town of Jamestown, hereby establish the Special Charter Review Committee and vest it with the authority to investigate, research, consult, deliberate, and recommend amendments, additions, or deletions of the town charter to the town council. And be it further resolved that the Charter Review Committee shall be composed of 5 to 7 voting members. All voting members shall be qualified electors and residents of the town of Jamestown appointed by the town council. The town council vice president shall be a voting member. The town administrator is hereby authorized and directed to organize and provide appropriate technical staff assistance to the Special Charter Review Committee to support the effective conduct of their duties and obligations. Meetings of the Special Charter Review Committee shall comply with all requirements for public meetings, including but not limited to the Open Meetings Act.
Okay, thank you.
I support this idea. And we've talked about a lot in this session, and experienced a couple real challenges with the financial town meeting. A thing that I actually particularly love, because represents our most, the purest form of democracy. Being a little bit of a budget nerd, I loved when I came to Jamestown for the first time and saw that I got the budget in the paper. That's a thing I've not experienced anywhere else I've lived, and I think is pretty special. So I love the transparency that we provide. But I do think this is a good idea. The level of participation we get is unfortunately not great or representative of the town. So I think that's really something important that we look at. I'll second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Did.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Peter,
Thank you, Mary. Oh, did he have his hand up?
Recommend maybe put on the next agenda, you have folks apply that want to be appointed, so you can make
So we can
selections. Yeah.
get the ball.
We need to vote to advertise or anything?
No, yeah, I think you just, so long as you're okay with the clerk posting that, I don't know if you want to do some outreach to let
Right.
folks know, other than through the clerk or the website.
So that we are able to interview people quickly at our next
Yeah.
meeting, which is another reason to have a special meeting. But, to interview people because we're giving them a very limited time frame. So I think that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. All right, next agenda.
could I just ask the solicitor one question? Peter, assuming, let's say we get the report October 19th, we would have to have a special town meeting to amend the town charter. Is that true? Well, no, I know we wouldn't have time, but I'm just saying, like, to effectuate it in general,
You have to determine if it's subject to the election laws or not, and if it is, it's got to go through a different process. It's not a local question at that point. So we have to look at all that and
Yep.
determine what type of an election it is. So at the best you could do will be next financial town meeting. That's the earliest the vote would happen, unless you called a special meeting ahead of time for a vote sometime in the spring, or it would default into a November cycle.
yeah. But the residents of Jamestown will make the decision.
Yes,
what we do.
ultimately, whenever the question is voted on, it's only the residents that decide.
Yep.
The voters that are registered in Jamestown.
Yeah, thank you. That was kind of where I was going. I just wanted to
Oh.
try and make that clear in the moment. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is the Fort Getty status report.
So I presented a report to you just based upon my understanding of the direction that you provided at the last meeting related to the ad hoc committee report that was presented to you. In general terms, I want to provide you kind of an overall conditions of where we are in the current operating season, and then talk about what the staff is working at in terms of getting further information that might be helpful to the town council as they move through consideration of Fort Getty. So I'll start with the current electrical conditions and concerns that continue at the park. So over the 4th of July weekend, the park did suffer a power outage. Just to clarify misinformation that's out there. That power outage was not isolated to Fort Getty. There was a power outage, Rhode Island Energy power outage in the area. Unrelated to that event, as we do occasionally during the summertime, when you have high temperatures, we're in the 90 degrees, high capacity, the park is full in terms of RV occupants. We do experience rolling brown outages due to electrical system. I would add the residents in residential homes also realize those same rolling brownouts on occasion during those high peak, high demand, high occupancy times. Related to the bathrooms, I think it's pretty well known that the bathrooms are in very poor condition. Both of them continue to experience issues related to drainage, oftentimes requiring plumbers to come in to clear those drains. Of course, that occurs on Saturdays, not during the week. The water line. So the Public Works Department did complete the installation of about 1,000 feet of water main, right? So previous to that, what I would call the last hydrant, which is just north of where the pavilion sits, was the end of at the time, the existing water main. Beyond that was what I would call a seasonal plastic pipe that serviced CISF, it serviced the campers, and it serviced the upper bathroom and the lower bathroom. So the public works staff did replace and install a new water main along with that. Hydrant was replaced and an additional hydrant was put at the north end, just across from the new CISF building. The service connections to the lower bathroom were completed. The RV site distribution point was completed, and the service to the CIFS facility was also completed. I've asked the staff to work to study the traffic related to the park for the month of July, specifically looking at the number of daytime visits that occur for the truck trailer combination that are coming into the park. That'll help the council and planners to be able to determine what the accommodations might be needed to accommodate those vehicle combinations coming and going. That seems to be a high capacity issue, right? Takes up a lot of space, difficult to park, difficult to organize within the park. It would allow for the council to make determinations of whether they want to regulate that. So, there are, like every other public boat ramp, there's a limited capacity. We really don't limit our capacity. We just let people come until we feel there's just too much. So there is an opportunity to probably in the future manage that once you have a better idea of what the demand is. In addition to that, we are also doing a total count of the traffic coming through Fort Getty, somewhere in the area of the lower bathroom. It'll determine the volume by time. It'll determine the average speed. It'll determine volume in both directions. So it'll give you a better analysis of what is the traffic conditions and whether there's an obvious factor of what may or may not be causing traffic concerns there. Related to funding, there's a combination of capital funds which have been earmarked over the years, along with the additional bond money which was executed. There's approximately $870,000 in funds that are currently available that are earmarked specifically for improvements to Fort Getty. Some of those are very specific that came out of the bond related to the RVs and the improvement or replacement of a bathroom. So information that, again, this is just clarification from my perspective and the staff's perspective of what we understand to date as we're working through getting in further information to help you decide on what might be next. Related to the upper bathroom, as I understand it, there's no plans to replace or repair the upper bathroom. That condition is about the equivalent of the lower bathroom. That is work if we are so directed to execute on at some point in the future where we could internally demolish that bathroom. It would be a little bit of electrical work to perform that, to prepare that. That is something we would have to contract out to be done. We've also had internal discussions about leaving the current ISDS system in place. Just for in case there's a shift in decision making that would be available if we decided we wanted to reconstitute a bathroom or a small facility there. The lower bathrooms, as I understand it, the council is still considering two options. Option one would be a new build, which would be just north of the existing structure. As you recall, we went through the exercise of developing a plan set for that. The proposed plan set, if there is a new build, would be approximately 936 square feet. In total fixture count, it is the same number of fixtures as the existing old lower bathroom. Same number of toilets, same number of showers on both male and female side. The only thing that a new build would add would be a single-use family bathroom and increase the total square footage of the building. What would be required for a new build is design, engineering of a new ISDS system. It would require permitting from both CRMC and Rhode Island DEM. It would require the installation of a new water line, new electrical service. We're working to determine the cost of those items. And depending on authorization, permitting, that would not likely happen for better than a year and a half, that we could even begin that process in terms of if there is a construction project to be there. I just want to tell you that in terms of developing cost estimates for construction, right? So we're looking at, we will give you a square foot estimate of where we are. We're not going to send that out unless we're directed to do so for an actual cost construction base, just because of the cost of that. That's a significant investment to have a professional estimator look at that, but we can give you a per square foot cost estimate of a new construction. I'll tell you how we're getting some of that information. Some of it's based upon the industry today. We know some of those standards today. We also have the benefit of Rhode Island DEM going through this exercise in a number of their state parks, where they are not only rehabbing some bathrooms, but they are replacing some bathrooms with new facilities. Most of them are pretty comparable in terms of the scale, in terms of the number of fixtures that we're looking at for our options as well. The second option would be to renovate the existing lower bathroom. That existing bathroom is 660 square feet. As I indicated, it's the same number of fixtures, toilets, showers, and sinks as what would be in a proposed new one. We've had discussion internally and with the SHPO office, the State Office on Historic Preservation, to restore the red brick. So we're working with various vendors to see if that is achievable to do that. We've also discussed with the SHPO to recreate the faux windows. In your packet, there's actually a very nice colorized image. It's as if you're standing with your back to Fort Getty Road and looking directly west up the face of what was the fort at the time. And it shows at the time what that was as a generator building, really a colorized photo that is very impressive. Really, in I think my eyes and the staff's eyes, and I know some of the people on the ad hoc committee, really kind of an incentive to see what you could get back. There's no misbelief here that we're not going to expose the entire face of that fort, but I think there is an opportunity to maybe expose a portion of that fort if the council so desires, to show what was there in existence. And that's a great photo. We're still working at cost estimates. That one we'll probably be able to refine a little bit better because we have vendors that we're currently working with, subcontractors, electricians, plumbers, carpenters. We're working on a couple of other projects. We've asked them to give us cost estimates upon all of those trades. We're working to get a more definitive number of where you are. Again, depending on authorization, funding, and execution, that is a project. I say this a very cautionary note, that we could begin in the 26-27 season if planned and given direction. We can't be given that direction on October 1st to begin that. If the council makes a decision in the coming weeks, I would say we can plan for those subcontractors to begin that work in the 26-27 off season, with the anticipation that we would be able to open that. No promise that it will be open before the 27 season, but sometime into the 2027 calendar year, we would be able to do that. Related to the tent sites, there was a direction to accommodate a total of 18 tent sites to be situated near the existing gatehouse. Beta, during their work, Eric had provided kind of a scale. I'm not sure if we can show that. Kind of showed a sketch of what that site layout would look like. That is, the benefit of that in terms of what Eric provided to us is there's not a whole lot of detail that we would need to execute on that if you gave us direction to do that. I mean, a site is associated to a stick in the ground with a number, a fire pit, and a picnic table. We can adapt as needed. We do that pretty regularly with our existing tent sites as we move through the season or on the off season where we're making adjustments. Again, given the direction and other work that we have in Public Works, that probably would not be executable until 27, 28, and when we could execute that work. With the exception of material, gravel material, picnic tables, fire rings, all minimal cost items, we would be able to achieve that work in-house. So that gives you kind of a graphic of what Eric provided in terms of a tent layout there. The new maintenance and bathroom facilities, again, as I understand it, the direction would be, as it's shown on this graphic here, would be located, I call it the end of the hospital road. I'm not certain if that's the right term, but located near the lower tent sites. You know, our estimates that the total structure would be somewhere around 1,300 square feet, as Eric indicated, and that was based upon, I think, a conversation that we had. We really wouldn't, and I'm not certain we actually need a 24 by 32 foot barn. Really what we need to accommodate is what you see sitting outside of that gatehouse all the time. There's a handful of mowers, there's some York rakes, there's some equipment. We don't need to accommodate trucks and those types of things in that facility. We would look to accommodate the equipment that's specific for the care, maintenance, lawn cutting, all of those things that are associated with Fort Getty specifically. As Eric indicated here too, I think I added a little bit here in terms of just thought process, in terms of the 2 single stall bathrooms, maybe 2 outdoor showers. And Mary, I know you had a question about how you reach those numbers, of whether those numbers are appropriate based upon the number of campsites that you have. Again, we're in contact and waiting for a response from DEM about what is the formula that they apply to their particular campgrounds. You know, I'll give you an example. At Burlingame, they're replacing 6 a little bit larger bathrooms in terms of the total number of fixture counts than what we have currently accommodated. It's very similar to the building that we toured with the ad hoc committee, and Mike and I had toured down at Fisherman's. You're talking probably, in terms of fixture count, you're talking for each male and female side, probably 3 showers, 3 toilets, 3 sinks. DEM at Burlingame is putting 6 of those facilities up for 800 sites. And those are tent sites. Those are transient sites. So I wouldn't say there's a definitive formula. We would have to work with DEM. I'm sure they could give us some guidance of whether the proposal of 2 single stall bathrooms and 2 outdoor showers, regardless of what that number lands on, there's 0 there today. So I would say that's an improvement.
That's a plus.
The other thing that we would like to improve in that area is a trash and recycling center. What we have there today is kind of disjointed, right? So it does not lead to the most efficient and effective recycling efforts. Right? We could do better at communicating that to all of our campers and visitors of the park. This too would require a design not only of the building and the bathrooms and the showers, so it needs a little bit more work than what a bathroom up at the lower bathroom site would. Bid specs, permitting, all of those things, as well as design, engineering, permitting of ISDS through CRMC and Rhode Island DEM. It would also require the installation of a new water line, electrical service, and that cost, again, we're going to give you a square foot cost number on that without developing a full set of specifications. Again, it would not be until late 2027. Literally, if you said go today, it would take us that long to get that engineered and get that working. So those things take time.
Ed, if I can interrupt you just now, I mean, I know you're about to start on the next one, but this was you're right. I was wondering if the size of that space was appropriate for what the rec department needed. So I'm happy to hear that it is. That's great. And also about the bathrooms. I would note too that we had a letter from the Conservation Commission, particularly about this storage facility and the tent camping. And their letter describes the area as a 8.6, well, it's an 8.8 acre parcel. And I think you'll find on various information that it's 8.68. But what I provided for my fellow counselors as well as the clerk, and I'm sorry I don't have it some of you are not as lucky as I am, and you don't have a full survey of Fort Getty in your possession, but I do, as the former chair of the 2004 Fort Getty Committee, and we commissioned a survey, so I have a copy of it. And oddly enough, in this, the site is a bit around 400 feet deep and about 600 feet long. And that translates to something less, more, just about 5.5 acres. That's in terms of the lot that is, that you see, well, in the graphic. Yeah, on that one. And what there would be 100-foot buffer around any camping that would happen, just as there is now. And I think you can see from, because the yellow parts of this drawing are where there is clearing now, that so the amount of buffer of this 5.5 acre spot totals about 2.75 acres. And then if at this dimension, as presuming that this is actually the dimensions on the town information is actually correct, at 5.5 acres, that means that the buffer is actually about half of what the site really is. And then in reality, the site's getting very slightly only bigger only by a little bit for tent camping. There are 13 sites there right now, I'm pretty sure. And so I think, in terms of the concerns of the Conservation Commission, I don't think we're really actually particularly expanding the use or destroying the habitat of that area. So I just wanted to make that clear right now. So.
Yeah, so we, the staff, still need to do a little bit more work, particularly about the building, right, related to the DEM information that they may be able to provide to us, a ratio of bathrooms and toilets related to the number of campsites. The other is we need to refine what our operational needs are there in terms of equipment that is essential to be stored on site, and whether we have other facilities. As I've indicated, for the last 3 years, the recreational staff is very disjointed in terms of the maintenance equipment. It's in 4 different locations. It makes it very difficult, very inefficient for them. There are times they're traveling to Fort Weatherall. I do recall in the letter from the Conservation Commission that we would anticipate having to store picnic tables and lifeguard chairs and all of those things. We would have to build this facility to accommodate that. We're not looking for that. We're looking for a building to operate the maintenance of the facility out of. We're not looking for a storage facility. There are other ways that we could accommodate those off-season storage needs. Again, we need a little more time, and I'll kind of close out when I get to that in terms of what I would ask the council of in terms of letting the staff do a little bit more work at this. So plantings and trails, I'll move on to next. Again, that would require a more refined design and permitting set by both CRMC and DEM. I would suggest that it becomes part of the plant management program. The planting cost material only. We can source some of the material from what we cultivate at the tree farm, but there are probably materials we would have to buy depending on what the final determination was. Again, I didn't put a time on this because I would see this as an ongoing effort of incremental work as Public Works becomes available to be able to do that work. But we would be able to do the work of that work in-house. The RV sites, right now we're working with a number of 62 RV sites when we're talking to our electrical contractors. The standard pedestal for an RV is a 50, 30, 20 amp pedestal. And there's been a lot of discussion about demand and load and all of that. So we are relying on our consultants and our subject matter experts on that. A lot of people misread that when they apply AI or something, and they assume every site needs 100 amps. That's not the reality. That's not the code. The code is it needs 50 amps. You pick your plug of what you want to accommodate your particular vehicle there. We also are working with the contractor to talk about putting a meter at each site. So there'd be a seasonal meter read in which we would figure out a rate at some point if the council so chooses, in which the RV occupant on a seasonal rate would be responsible for the electrical cost. Same would be related to water. So I indicated that the water main is put in, but the distribution system that goes to the individual sites, if the council so moves forward with RV sites there, would have to be completely replaced. very low costs. It's not a tremendous amount of material costs there. The material costs would be related to the poly pipe that goes in the ground. It's a seasonal system, does not have to be buried, at 36 inches. It's something where we would purge as we do every year, but it would also be an individual water source and meter for each individual site. Just to confirm, in the 2025 season, electricity for just RV sites, our electrical cost was $30,000. I would expect that to be tremendously more in terms of dollars this year. And in the water, that water commission keeps raising the rate, so that rate's probably going to go up as well. So last year was $10,000. I would expect that to go up. And I am very optimistic about water use there. So in terms of water, right, there's really no incentive to conserve water when you're at the park, right? So there's a couple of things in terms of metering. We also eliminated, while Mike and the staff were replacing the water main, there was I have no other way to describe it, and I don't mean to insult anybody. It was a free use spigot where people were rinsing their boats and rinsing their equipment and everything else completely unchecked. So we still have that available, but it's at the gatehouse where it can still be used, but not necessarily abused, if you would. So we're working on a couple of things there. So in terms of the permitting process would be considered a repair process, not a new build process, which helps move the process along in terms of permitting. What we are working at with our consultants is developing, based upon those numbers, a new load analysis and a complete build, right? So that also relates to, let me talk about how that connects to the Rhode Island Energy question, because I know that's been floated around of there's not enough power coming to the park to support the RVs, right? So the process would be our engineer would develop the load calculation. They would submit a work request permit to Rhode Island Energy. Rhode Island Energy would then tell us what is needed to power what you are proposing. That may be an upgrade to the service coming in. It may be transformers. It may be additional work by Rhode Island Energy. I don't assume in either direction of what that cost may be, whether it's zero cost or whether that cost is us on entirely. And I know when people try to relate that to a private home and they have gone through this experience and they said, well, Rhode Island Energy said they're going to upgrade my electrical system and it's $50,000. Rhode Island Energy is doing a calculation based upon return on investment. I have to suspect most homes aren't generating a $30,000 customer in a 3-month season, right? Let alone the calculation of all of the other energy that we produce. So Rhode Island Energy looks at the return on investment for us as an entity, not a single property. So I don't want to jump to any conclusions in either direction on that, but that is the process to get us there.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yes.
For both the case for energy and for water, when we're thinking about billing a user for it in arrears, are there other places that do that, and what is their success in getting people to pay for it? I just think about getting somebody to pay for the electricity that they used at a hotel room that they were at last month. The likelihood of paying that bill is maybe not great.
Yeah, so we talked about this internally about how we might be able to navigate that. So it may, and what other RVs do that charge for billing and charge for electrical use, usually there's a security deposit attached to it on the front end. So you walk in the door, I'll make a number up. You got to give us a $500 security deposit. You got to pay a seasonal rate. The end of the year, we'll give you a net back after we deduct your water and electrical use.
Got it.
But Eric, marinas do that all the time.
So in addition to kind of the, I'm sorry.
Saying the marinas do that all the time with the electricity. Right. Yeah, it's pretty sad.
In addition to the RV sites, there is a road realignment on Eric's presentation there. It's about 7,000 square feet of road replacement that has to occur there. That's a simple formula. We'll develop a number there for you. There's when I say realignment, that means there's asphalt coming out. I didn't do the calculation on that. That's a demo cost that we would be able to handle internally. That would be a loom grade material, again, that we would be able to do. The cost for us would be the paving project of about 7,000 square feet. And again, planting material that would have to go in there. We're going to do our best to develop a total cost of 62 sites with all of those things in there. Again, if you said go today, it's something depending on permitting, right? Depending on planning, everything else, CRMC involvement, their response. in planning of other public works projects that we have coming. That could be a project that would be started at the end of, it'd be the end of the 27 season. I apologize. So I put that in as a 26, 27 season. We wouldn't be able to do that work until the end of next camping season, right? So I apologize for that.
But you could probably do
There's
demo.
parts and pieces we
Right,
could do,
exactly.
right? But, I don't want anybody's expectation that we're gonna, if the direction is there's gonna be 62 RV sites there, you're not gonna have 62 brand new RV pedestals and water spigots and reconfiguration and road done for the 2027 season. There's just no way we'd be able to achieve that. The overall electrical opportunities for the park. So, as you drive past the existing pavilion, you get to the lower bathroom. You then see where there's this row of utility poles that, overhead utilities, right? Often described as less than appealing. They provide service to the CISF building. They provide service to the current pedestals. And they also provide electrical service both to the upper bathroom. If we're going to go through this exercise of RV pedestals, right, new transformers, reconfiguring the way the electrical system works there. We walked that site not only with Eric, but we walked it with Mike, and we walked it with our electrical engineers. There's an opportunity for us to eliminate all of that overhead, all of those utility poles, basically from the lower bathroom going north. Right. So it would be additional effort on our part to accommodate where the CISF building is with both electrical and Verizon. But we're asking our consultant engineer to look at all of those opportunities because we didn't want to miss that opportunity to really, I say, clean up all of that overhead utility. It would be, I think, a remarkable view change. Talking about the historical structures, I know there was not a lot of discussion about that. There's a couple of things that would have to happen there. One is it would require some exploration, right? So we need to determine what's buried there, what's collapsed there, what we want to expose. It's very evident that a lot of the condition of the structures there is probably beyond repair, right? So we would either need to make those safe, collapse them, whatever we need to do. But again, when you go back to that image of the face of what was the original fort there, that image there, I think, really gives a little bit of inspiration where we might be able to capture, I would say, I'm going to throw a number at the first 100 feet of that fort to expose that so people can see what that looked like at one point with appropriate fencing and protection around it would really be a tremendous, I think, asset for the park. We are also, on several occasions, been consulting with Chris Zeman. Chris Zeman has been a consultant for DEM at Fisherman's, at Fort Adams. He was referred to me by DEM as kind of the subject matter expert when it comes to public parks related to forts and fort structures. I'm not sure if he provided this photo or if we found that photo somewhere else, but he's a tremendous asset, also doing work in other state parks. Related to the pier area, one thing, and I'm fairly certain the council knows this, but I'll remind you, the boat ramp and the associated touch and go. So I'll say 20 years ago when the boat ramp was in, there was a proposal for a touch and go there, which was eventually not permitted related to the type water there that was not allowed. So Jim Hegney has been navigating, no pun intended, to get through CRMC to see if there's a seasonal floating touch and go that can get there based upon some special conditions that are related to that particular ramp and location. So he and the Harbor Commission are working at that. As a reminder, there was significant repairs. There was also the engineering study done, the pier in 2024 following significant storm damage that occurred there. Additionally, we're consulting with DEM. So DEM has a program where they build and manage commercial piers, right, with a focus on a small commercial fisherman. I'm not talking about they do manage the one at Point Judith, larger vessels, but they also have a program where they have a number of small marinas that they manage for what I would call the family commercial operator, right? Small 25-foot or smaller vessel where they're day fishermen going out. So DEM is consulting with us about what works for them in terms of trying to accommodate, in our case, it'd be mostly aqua farmers, but commercial fishermen at the pier, right? And whether there's a partnership availability there or not, we don't know. We're in early conversations with them. You know, the challenge we would have is we've indicated, we talked about that pier in years past, is that's a multi-million-dollar investment to replace that pier at some point, and that day is coming. We just don't know when that day is coming. So what DEM could offer and bring to the table, again, we're very early in conversations, is a funding mechanism to make that maybe achievable. Jim is also looking at the location and capacity of kayak racks, and will navigate that, what I would say, that northern end. So when you get to the boat ramp, everything north, well, actually a little bit before that, when you have that lower parking lot, and see whether there's a better use of that lower parking lot area for kayak storage, right? And kind of clean up the congestion that happens around the boat ramp. And then lastly, I've asked Jim to kind of weigh in about what would be appropriate location and need for a bathroom up towards the boat ramp and the pier, right? So that was one of the things. So one of the things, what I put in there just as a note, that Clevis toilet challenges, the cost alone is about $85,000 to happen. There is a permitting process that happens. I'll just offer this as kind of food for thought at this point, and we're early on before we give you kind of a recommendation, is, you know, we have a solution at a number of our properties. The porta potty works well. There's a number of reasons it works well. Somebody else maintains it all the time. Somebody comes and cleans it, maintains it, pumps it. We don't touch it. We pay a very minimal bill for that. It's a very seasonal part, right? Clevis toilet, which we have at Taylor Point, right, has been in place 5 or 6 years, right? It's a maintenance challenge for us. And the difficult part we have there is there are times we have to close that facility because of the abuse that happens to it, right? Because of the fish cleaning that happens in it. I think we had deer parts in it at one point. But you will notice at Taylor Point this time of year, we have to give that bathroom a break. We actually have to shut that and lock it off, and you see a porta potty up there. That is the challenge of a Clevis toilet, right? So along with the permitting and all the engineering that has to happen with CRMC. I'm just saying it would be a better solution. And I would never suggest that we're just going to stick a porta potty in the woods, right? I think we have the opportunity to develop, you know, you see it when you go to recreational facilities where there's an enclosed structure that houses a porta potty. The company comes and replaces the porta potty every year. They clean it every week. They pump it every week. So I think, you know, that is a viable solution to consider. So that is a basic summary of what we know, what we believe you want us to work at. And in terms of time, right? So we are waiting for a lot of answers from a lot of people at this point. DEM, our vendors, other things we're working at to develop more definitive cost numbers for you and kind of workload. Right. So I just want to close with, we need more time to give you the answers that you had asked for related to cost, particularly when you're talking about the RV sites, right? We want to be locked in on that number so you can make an educated decision about whether that's the right move or not. And I think associated to that would be the lower bathroom, right? I don't think we would build a lower bathroom to the scale and size if we're not going to have RVs associated to that. I'm not saying we wouldn't do something different if there were just 10 sites. I think you'd have to refit that. But I would suggest the first answer that you need to kind of present to yourself, a question to present to yourself is, are we going to continue with RVs or not? We just don't have the information for you at this point that I would feel comfortable giving you a definitive number. This is the cost, right? So the cost numbers that we were based upon, you know, when we talked about a $500,000 investment, I just want to, again, I'm not making excuses for me or the staff or the consultants. That's a number we got 3 years ago when we first proposed that to you. So that's an old number. Not saying it's still not a good number, but I'm just not comfortable presenting that number to you at this point and continue with that number.
Ed, I just think this whole status report is terrific. I mean, I think it's you know, it kind of exemplifies some of the ways you do things, because I think it's just thorough, and it's looking at all the issues and it's raising them all and in a very clear way. And I just really appreciate that. It's exactly what I was hoping to get. It's probably, I think you're exactly right. We need some more time for the financials. I think it's also appropriate that we might have a meeting where Mr. Galley is very kindly here today, but where we might have a meeting, a workshop, more of a less formal than us sitting up here and talking, a workshop similar to what the ad hoc committee did to just sort of suss out some of the reasoning behind some of these these things. I mean, for example, what we see up here. And so I think I'd like the council to think about that. Do you have a sense of what your time frame is for getting more? Do you think by our next August 17th meeting, you should have more numbers?
I can provide you a status at that time. Optimistically speaking, I would love to have those numbers. The big number for us is related to the electrical. I'm confident that our electrical contractors and engineers can give us a number for that. I'm not confident I can have an answer from Rhode Island Energy if there's an infrastructure upgrade that's necessary and if there is a cost associated to that. I cannot guarantee that.
Right. I wouldn't think so, knowing how fast they move to move a pole. But I think even if we had the costs that you've described, I think that's appropriate, so if we can, I think maybe at some point when we're after the 17th, maybe we would gather in a more informal way to talk with Mr. Galley and talk with staff, with Mike, with Ray, and just about what this is, what that is. But you've answered a lot of questions for me, at least. I mean, especially in terms of that recreation facility at the tent sites, and just that it solves our issue. So that's great.
In the same respect, I know you don't want to go out to bid for any of those things. Do you think at that same meeting we'll have some more of the numbers on things like bathrooms, that we're able to get information from DEM and some of those other places to get some ballpark estimates?
So DEM's going, no surprise, is going kind of through a leadership change for project management. Talking to the director responsible for Parks and Rec. So they're going to arrange a meeting for us to be able to review the process that they're going through, right? So ironically, one of the contractors that we use just renovated a bathroom at Lincoln Woods. So, we have the benefit of their knowledge there, for good or bad. But so DEM went through the process. Keep in mind, they do projects in a different manner, right? I wouldn't say their numbers in terms of construction cost are, I wouldn't rely on those numbers, right? I think it's a very high number when they're doing a project compared to what we are able to do a project for.
At least that gives
We're
me an
working
idea,
toward that.
though. Yeah.
The ratio number, we're working towards whether there's a formula that we would apply, kind of get their subject matter. I mean, they're managing state parks, as we know. They're managing bathrooms. They're dealing all those issues all the time, and have professional staff who do that for decades. And so I would, really lean on them for their institutional knowledge about what are those appropriate ratios. They've already given us some information about the better way to construct a public bathroom to endure the public abuse that it gets and all of those things. So yeah, we're working towards that at the same time.
Great.
Ed, quick question on Nancy, did you want to say something? Sorry, I didn't want to get in your way. On the tent camping, I guess, lot 22, where we would have tent camping, we would have bathrooms, we would have a storage facility. Did I hear you right that we might look at the bathrooms or the footprint that we would build there, and that might change depending on what we do or don't do with RVs? Or was that a different bathroom? I just want to make sure. I think yeah.
You're talking about the lower bathroom, which is the bathroom. When you see the photo of the old building,
Yep.
that photo, there's a bathroom in that now.
Oh.
So that's what he means, but I believe that's what you mean by the lower bathrooms, correct? Yeah.
The existing lower bathroom, which is probably the worst of the two bathrooms we have on property there.
Yep.
We would need to understand whether we're going to continue with RVs or not, to understand what the scale of that would be.
Yep.
Right. I'm not saying we wouldn't, if there's no RVs and there's a desire to have a public bathroom within the park, we could just reconfigure this and still make this a beautiful facility. It just might not have showers or 3 toilets each or something like that.
Right.
Yep. I think where I was kind of going was, if we are, it sounds like there's good alignment around tent camping and the bathrooms around like lot 22, and in the spirit of trying to show progress, I think bathrooms were like numero uno on the survey that we had. So if we have alignment around that, if there's a desire to have those facilities, like we might be able to front run some of this stuff if you know if we all decide that that makes sense. But and recognizing that I think you said that timeline even is, you know, end of 27 season when, you know, things could start to really materially happen. So I think there's all, I also have that on my mind is
Sure.
might take some time to kind of get that going.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a way that council could coalesce around
Yeah.
something in advance of
You
like a
make-
more fulsome idea.
Make a
with-
decision now, right? Is what you're sort of saying?
well, maybe not right this moment, January 20th, without the figures, but
July
what did I say?
January.
Oh God, yeah.
You were anticipating this.
Sorry, excuse me. July 20th. But yeah, that's kind of where I was going was like, what can we do, you know, to show progress on something that I know Mary's
Yeah,
been
so
thinking
I
about.
would look at that lower bathroom, I'm sorry, lower tent project, really in two components, right? So, you know, for us to lay out those sites and get that work done, you know, we could work in that direction. It's minimal cost. It is a tremendous effort for Public Works to get that done. And
Yep.
again, it would depend on schedule of all the work. But when you talk about the component of the structure there, right, that is a significant project, right? That currently has no funding earmarked for that particular project, right? So there's a water line, there's electrical service, there's an ISDS system that has to go in, there's the construction of the building, right? So I'm not, you know, splitting hairs about how money has been earmarked, but there's been no money allocated for that particular project. Not saying you can't figure out a way to do that. We can revisit that issue. I'm just putting that on the table that just for everybody's understanding of where we are. So, you know, we will continue to work to get you as much information so you can make as many informed decisions. And you know, at the end of the day, come August 17th or whatever the date might be, we might have enough information that you can make some decisions. The reality is we're not starting that work until September if we're given the direction and we can clear up some staff. And Mike just rolled his eyes at me. I saw that. So it's
That's why he's sitting on that side of the room.
yeah.
He's sitting very.
No,
far
I think
away
that all
from-
makes sense. Two other just quick comments. One is I definitely appreciate the Conservation Commission's letter. I mean, I think anything that we're doing should be in line with our comprehensive plan. And then there's a certain aesthetic that I think we're trying. I mean, we built there's an aesthetic to the gatehouse that we built, and I think we should carry that through. I don't want to
Right.
like build some Taj Mahal of like bathroom and storage facility combination, but I think we should pay attention to that. So I think that
Right.
would be good. And then the last is I mean, we have $870,000 for Fort Getty, I believe, right?
Correct.
Some of that money is bonded for the projects that we've outlined, and some of that money is a little bit more fungible, I think.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Right. So I think years ago, there was $50,000 put towards a storage facility for the rec department. And then there has been some money put towards bathrooms. So it would not cover the construction of that. So I understand your concerns about that.
Yep.
But I share your interest in making evident that that's a real, I think that it's always been a priority of mine, providing that kind of facility and providing adequate facilities for folks who tent camp. I think it's a wonderful thing that we can do. So I agree with you.
I'd love to be able to make that decision in August. I
Okay.
agree.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to new business. Was it item F?
Yeah,
Or-
if you wouldn't mind moving item F up to the front of new business, Nancy, I think Nancy's in the back there, related to the 11 Knowles Court feasibility study. And then there's a couple of consultants that will co-present with Nancy.
Okay, thank you.
It was a good presentation.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So, December of 2025, the town council authorized the town manager to move forward with a feasibility study for the use of 11 Knowles Court for affordable housing. And we have that report for you today.
Thank you. Do you want to just remind everybody in the audience who you are? I'm sorry.
Sure. I'm Nancy Latender. I am the Director of Planning and Zoning.
Thank you.
And with me is Erica Zerta with Union Studios, and Eric, who's with Peregrine Group. They are going to walk you through the study. And
Thank you. You might want to bring,
That's what I typically have to do. Is that good?
that's really
Right
good.
there? Okay. So as Nancy mentioned, I'm Erica Thornton with Union Studio. So we were asked to look at a feasibility for 11 Knowles Court, looking at, can we fit 10 units of affordable housing on the site, along with a harbor office. So we can go to the next slide. So this is the existing site. It was the former ambulance barn, so it had quite a high intensity use. You can see on the site that there's parking in front of the building. There's about 10 parallel, 10, I would say, pull-in spaces along the right side there. It's about 5 parallel spaces, you kind of count. The current setbacks of the building are about 25, 28 feet. And the side setback to the left is 12 to 15 feet. We just wanted to note a few things about the site that we have, as far as our butters around the site, you've got a lot of parking, right, to the east and to the south, and we have Crudo Restaurant for that little short bit in the back, and then there is a residence, I believe, to the west, but that is a very heavily vegetated buffer. So we just wanted to call out some of those important aspects of the site. On the next slide. Just for the current zoning, we have the site is in a public district zone at the Jamestown Village Special Development Overlay District. And then neighboring zones are the commercial downtown and the downtown condominium. And even though this was we were just looking at this as sort of a conceptual project, we did go through to try to note to you all where we think a building here would not conform to the current zoning. So a multifamily is not permitted currently in the public zone district. A municipal office would be special permit. We did note though that there is multifamily permitted in the neighboring zones. So, but the lot size doesn't conform, things like that. The minimum yard dimensions would be very difficult to achieve on this site as well. So where we weren't able to conform to these base zoning, we did look to neighboring zones to try to keep consistent. We looked at the design guidelines to keep consistent with what you would want to see in the district overall, and we kept to under that 4,000 square feet that's in for a multifamily for a ground floor, as well. That's in the neighboring CD district. Next slide. And so again, this is more informative. I'm not going to read through the whole thing, but for people who are in the room, the Jamestown Village Special Development District calls for, being a good neighbor to the street, having a frontage along the street, trying to create a nice public realm and sidewalks that connect to the street, parking behind primary buildings and whatnot. There is also a low and moderate income requirement within the district that many may be very familiar with. So this project would fall under that, being that it is over 4 units. And go next slide. And so this is the concept to show 10 units on the site with the harbor office. So we've tried to keep it very similar. We have to widen the building a little bit in order to fit the units in there. So we have one row, 10 units of parking, 10 parking spaces for 10 units. And we have the 2 spaces for the harbor office out front. So it is keeping a pretty similar diagram to what's there currently, but it does actually reduce the amount of parking and pavement that you see along the street because the harbor office is pulled into where some of that parking is right now. We've kept very similar setbacks that would be seen in the district, and we've added a little bit of an amenity space as a proposal in the back as well.
along with the important, you need to have trash and collection.
So when you say setbacks, you mean the setbacks for residential, more residential setbacks?
Yeah, we tried to keep it to the commercial downtown, the neighboring one that has
Yeah.
within the Jamestown Village District, which requires for multifamily, I think it's at least a minimum of 12 feet.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So we can go to the next slide. So we just wanted to show that, this is a feasible footprint, that this all can work in a logical manner. So we have on each floor, or actually I should say on the first and the second floor, and this is the first ground floor, we have 2 one-bedroom units and 2 two-bedroom units. And they range in size from 500 to, we have there's, 820 square feet, 115 square feet. As required, you'll see some notes on there, type B units, accessible units. We have the required. Those have to be adaptable units on the ground floor if they're not accessible. We have a single stair. This is maximizing the building code, 4 units per floor, 1 single stair. So it saves from having to have an elevator. And then the second floor, very similar footprint, but we do sort of in keeping with the nature of affordable housing, we have 1 larger unit that we're able to provide there with a den. And then on the 3rd floor is a half story with 2 two-bedroom units. And this helps us keep the scale down of the building as well. So if you see on the next slide, the elevation, we looked at this. We're just showing some example of the materials, some things that would be in kind to what you would require in your design guidelines. And we used looking upwards as an example of this, which is a recent project that our firm has completed in the town. And so this is just feasibility. This wouldn't be what necessarily the building looks like. It could go in a lot of different directions, but we just wanted to show an example of something that's realistic that could fit in here. And I've provided on the next slide as well some examples of that for people to see what looking upwards looks like. So it's looking at composite wood siding, nice finishes and details. And then we provided some renderings as well as to what this would feel like on the site. This is more of like an axon view to give you a whole picture. And then the next slide gives you a ground level view of the entrances and what that would look like. If there are no questions, I'm going to pass it over to Eric Bush, who's going to give us the more challenging story of how this would all get financed.
One quick question for you. So the limitation to 2 units on the 3rd floor, what's really the limiting factor there?
Yeah, so
Design.
it's about what I think you guys would think is feasible, what you would like to see on the site. Right, for us, it was limiting factor was parking. Right now, we're providing 1 space per unit. So if you did you could technically go to 12 for this building for code. You would just have a deficiency in parking then.
I think one of the issues, I think it's a design issue. They also stayed within the 35-foot height limit, which is a town requirement. I would note, however, that right next to it is a building that's about 60 feet tall, 50 feet tall, 50 to 60 feet tall. And behind it is a building that's taller than 35 feet too. The apartment building that's on Narragansett Avenue is also taller than 35 feet.
Yeah, and my there too is we have a lot of 1-bedrooms there, not necessarily.
Sorry,
great
Eric,
for-
can you speak into the microphone?
We have a lot of 1-bedrooms here. They're not necessarily particularly great for families.
Right.
So even if we have to stay with a, certain number, keep it at 10 units, we might be able to leverage that additional space there to create a couple larger units that are suitable for people with kids.
Yeah, I think that could be. Thank you.
Beautiful design, by the way. Looks great.
Yeah.
Thanks, Erica. Is that good height?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I don't have pretty pictures and good colors, so I have to drag you through the boring stuff. So some of the numbers.
Money's not boring.
I can make it that way, trust me. Now, so what we had done, if we don't mind advancing the slide, is really to look at this plan.
We have your profile stuff, so you can.
Okay, sure. So what we basically did is we took this plan, and again, at the same level of sort of a conceptual plan, is really tried to do a couple things. One, kind of step one, is we wanted to apply cost to it as best we can at this level of detail. Two, give some benchmarks from the market in terms of affordability ranges as well as market rate, non-income restricted, both apartments and as for sale units. And then really use the combination of the costs and the potential revenue from what's shown here to look at kind of applying some sort of benchmarks around financing. And what it inevitably does is look at what's feasible and what leaves a funding gap. So wanted to help define those, again, conceptual level, just to give some benchmarking. And then finally, speak to some potential programs for some of those elements that might need a little bit of subsidy that aren't quite market financeable. And I know it's tough to follow without a visual, so my apologies for that. So the first thing we did is we applied at a kind of high level, we applied this building program and looked at it as rental apartments. And these are year-round, as they were looked at just from a financial perspective, looking at, okay, if there are people paying rent to live in these 10 units, what does that look like? And so we did that, and then we applied the same for sale. So to walk through the apartment side of things first, and for both the apartments and for the for sale components, the cost came out fairly equal. So what we did is took these plans, and a third-party group, a group called Stan Corporation, who's done quite a bit of development at this scale locally, applied some at a conceptual level construction numbers to the building, and then we layered into it what we know for project costs, for architecture and engineering, for financing, for carry costs during construction, for all the other soft costs and other things that become part of a project. And basically, to boil down to where we end up is somewhere in the order of magnitude is about $500,000 per unit. So very round numbers because of where we are in this analysis. They're all very round numbers, but roughly a $5 million project to deliver those 10 units of housing. Now that could be plus or minus 10%, certainly as we refine things, but benchmark to the market and the industry, they're not far off from what we're seeing out there in the market. So for apartments, and I apologize again for folks who are trying to follow along without the tables here, wanted to look at published data around affordability. And affordability meaning, and I know there's a lot of affordable housing folks in the audience, but basically looking at household incomes as they're published each year from HUD and Rhode Island Housing. And what we did is we looked at households, different size from 1-person to 4-person households, and looked at 60% of the area median income through 120% of the area median income. So hopefully we can pull those up soon and we can see that what those income ranges look like. And if we basically applied rents to the building based on different AMI level, area median income levels, what that sort of funding and revenue stream would look like. So that's probably a good place to catch up right there. So again, this is just a snapshot. This is really absent of just looking at this building, but looking at income levels for different size households in Jamestown, or these are the published numbers for folks making 60% of the area median income all the way through 120%. And then essentially what those rents are per month. So generally speaking, it's 30% of the gross income of a household is applied to rent. And again, apologize for folks in the audience who are experts in this area. But the reason we did this is to go back to, okay, if we applied these rents in a different scale from one side to the other, what does that look like to try and balance that, essentially that $5 million project? So if you could advance one slide and then one more. and again, apologies, it's much easier to show building pictures than numbers in a public forum. But in this, we looked at basically what we'll see again as we go through in the for sale, the breakdown of costs. So if we could hold on that, but that basically a $5 million investment. And if we look at those rental incomes from going left to right here from a pure market rent based on comparable apartments in the area to a split of market rent and apartments held for folks making 80% in the AMI and then 100%, 80% as we go. We see that on the rental perspective, there's quite a bit of a funding gap to be able to afford that $5 million if you're going out to the market for financing. And how we determine that is we look at the typical ways you would finance a project like this. As you go to a commercial lender and borrow money, and then there'd be that combination of the debt being borrowed and the equity that would need to have some level of return to make this $5 million investment feasible for a developer. In our analysis here, we looked at it as a for-profit developer. Certainly, as we get into nonprofit, there'd be some differences in this, but we wanted to start with just if, I'm the managing partner of a development firm in East Providence. We look at projects like this all the time. This is sort of that development perspective that says, if we knew that these 10 units would cost about $5 million to build, and we had some level of income restriction, either full market rate without income restriction or this split or other income levels, we know that we're probably not feasible from this apartment perspective. And this is the range, as you see the red numbers here, of a pretty sizable funding gap between what can be afforded based on those rents and what needs to be spent in order to create those apartments. I know we've run through
quick
back and forth, so happy to pause.
What time period?
This is looking at a snapshot in time of saying, here's a stabilized property producing cash flow. And I'm saying that that equity investor would want a 7.5% annual return on their investments. So it's taking
If the cap rate would be, or what would I'm just trying to like, there's I guess what time period we're getting rent annually? Yeah, is it?
For the affordability?
Well, it's not really the more. I'm
assumed to be a 25-year amortization period. If I can back up on that, I know we skipped some of this on the intro. I'm doing a snapshot in time and saying this property is stabilized, meaning it's basically producing rent. All those 10 apartments are rented at one of these levels, and with that, we'll have some operating expenses, kind of standard for paying for what landlords pay for. We have cash flow coming out, and I think in the packet you have all this detail. You have basically cash flow coming after you pay those operating expenses, and that's the amount of money you can use to borrow money and put here at an interest rate of 6.5% for 25 years. You'd have this much ability to raise debt, and how much equity could you raise if an equity investor required 7.5% per year on a snapshot in time as a stabilized property. I know it's a lot to cover in that slide, so my apologies. Jumping into the weeds very quickly.
Your question answered?
I don't know. It's okay though.
Yeah, no,
it's hard because I don't know, like if you looked at it like on a P&L, like this is a year.
Yeah.
Like how much money
So if I'm investing equity into an apartment building, one of the metrics I would look at is what is that cash flow per year?
Mm-hmm.
One of the industry standards is about, depending on risk, but about 7.5% is where we plug this to say, I invested $100, I expect 7.5% return in order for me to make that investment. So we're just trying to simplify by saying, here's a snapshot in time of what, how much equity I could afford or bring into the project in order to produce that return. And that's helping me define my gap. So I'm looking at that cash flow, seeing how much I can borrow and pay that mortgage, and how much equity I can bring into the project and be able to make that return. And the gap is essentially whatever is beyond that to get us to $5 million.
Okay.
It's tough. I'm not reading it either. Except to see
Is the 7.5% like referred to as like the cap rate? Or is that a different concept or similar?
Similar concept.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, and
I mean, I think
my apologies. We were trying to kind of get to. I'm happy to walk through the detail, and I know you guys have it, and kind of I think it makes a lot more sense. We wanted to kind of give the snapshot of what we thought was feasible and not feasible, or what that funding gap looks like. So
I think essentially what you're saying is that you've got a $2.5 million even at market rate, you'd have $2.5 million. Wouldn't be that you'd need to find some other source of funding.
Exactly right.
Right. Okay.
And again, not surprised.
Right.
You don't see a lot of small scale apartment buildings like this.
Right.
And I should say, we looked at this analysis and then had peers review it. We kind of looked at, and essentially came to the same conclusion.
Right.
We'd have this gap.
And if it was to be an affordable for 80 AMI, you'd have a $3.8 million gap.
Correct.
So you would be seeking, the plus of that is you would be seeking grants, much as Looking Upwards sought grants for doing a similar project and received $4.5 million worth of funding. So that is possible. Right.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
Is there a certain number of units or scale where you start to get real economies? Like where this starts to present a different picture?
50?
Depending on that cost of production, right now it's 50 to 100 plus units where it starts to make sense.
I'm sorry,
So-
Eric, can you try to speak into the microphone a little
sure.
more? Thank you.
Yeah, the reality is that, in today's market, if it costs $500,000 to produce a rental unit, you're seeing very few produced, but it tends to be scale that's 100 plus.
So we're like an order of magnitude off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, just for what it's worth, try to look at this just, cold,
No,
looking at
the
comparable data and plugging it in, not trying to,
I'm not holding you accountable. The numbers are the numbers.
delivering.
Yeah. I'm
It's
not
bad
killing the
news, it's
messenger.
just news, right?
Yeah, and none of that is unexpected, right? That's
No,
we have
I don't think
a
so.
housing problem for this reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
This kind of explains it, doesn't it? Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
And I think it's worth noting, and I apologies again for it, not taking the time up front to kind of walk through, but I think too, one factor is clearly when you look at that AMI list, and we'll do it again as we go forward, but when you look at the area median incomes, there's traditional funding sources, the federal low-income housing tax credits, et cetera. It's usually 60% of the area median income or below in different metrics.
Right.
That 80 to 120% area median income is that household, that missing middle, workforce, whatever term you're comfortable with. That's the kind of the area of the program that we find, again, from a development perspective, you don't have that federal programs, you don't have the low-income housing tax credits, you don't have a
Right.
lot of those resources to fill those gaps. So it becomes more of a creative exercise.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. So there's more money. The poorer people are, there's more federal resources for that is essentially the answer.
In the low-income housing tax credit.
Yeah.
realm,
Yeah.
yes. So I could pick it up a little bit and get slightly better news. If we want to move forward and do the same analysis, and I'll walk it through a little bit more slowly this time with the visuals. Again, step one, applying costs as best we can to the model. And then two, again, looking at the rent and sales prices, this time as for sale or condominiums as opposed to apartments rental. And then applying that same somewhat confusing analysis, but trying to take a snapshot on how you could finance that in the capital markets. So if we look at step one on cost, and this would be very similar to the apartments, if we could advance one, basically what we've done here on cost, and I'm going backwards a little bit, but again, that $500,000 a unit, but just to make it more clear, had somebody look at those drawings from Union, Stan Corporation, and apply their best guess and a detailed estimate, again, to the level of detail that's on paper. For this analysis, a couple of key things. One, it does not assume a prevailing wage of any kind. So this was just applied without a prevailing wage requirement. And two, this, just like the apartments, assumed land acquisition, so the land value at zero. I glossed over that before as we were kind of getting into it. We applied some allowances for things like a fire pit and common space. If you look at the site plan, there's some elements of site work. I don't think it's a huge number here. Signage and lighting, contingencies that would be required by banks and lenders, and then all those soft costs that I mentioned before. So that's where we go from what we think is pure construction cost, sort of vertical construction cost of just over $400,000 per unit, down to that extra 100,000 or so to make it about 500,000. Okay, so again, looking at this from a for sale perspective, if this is our cost, and if we could advance one, now we start to apply what those revenue sides might look like. If we could advance one more. And this is, again, that same table we looked at before, where we've got basically the incomes for households, the different median income levels, and then basically using the Rhode Island Executive Office of Housing actually has a calculator on their website that helps you with these pieces of information. An assumed condominium fee gets netted out, but essentially what those units cost, and could be the max is at the bottom there. So you could see the 1-bedroom and the 2-bedroom numbers, basically at 120% of the area median income, that max is about $375,000 plus or minus, assuming that you do have that condominium fee. So just in general terms, to the points well made, $500,000 to deliver a unit that is capped at about 375 as of for sale. So if we advance one more and look at the financing perspective of it, the gaps are a little bit better. As a market look, we have an exhaustive list of sort of comparable sales over the last several years. We went through and tried to highlight those that were most similar, and came out with a number of about $636,000 in that market comparable. With that, it works well from a financing perspective, with a 13% profit for the developer, because it's for sale. It's a little bit different than that year over year. And then as we move left to right here, if we split market and 120% area median income, we have a gap of just under 100,000 per unit. And you can see as it falls off below, it just gets a little bit more exacerbated in that funding gap. Again, best guess at where we are cost-wise. We knock 10% off the cost, it gets that much better. Condo fee goes down $50, it gets a little bit better. There's all these moving elements that will impact those numbers. So then with that analysis, if we want to advance one more, there's a couple of programs out there, and some in the room may be very familiar with these. There's been efforts at the state level in recent years, including the current budget with $120 million for housing and home ownership. And there's a couple of programs that might be applicable and worth looking at for benchmarking and for looking at a means to approach these gaps, essentially. And again, talked with a number of colleagues in the market, in the state, that are trying to do similar developments. And two that might be worth looking at. If you could advance one slide, there's a program that is in a pilot state right now. It has been out there for a few months or so, a little bit beyond that. It's a pilot through 2029. But as I mentioned before, when traditional affordable housing is basically looking at using 30% of a gross, the income at a household, and using that gross number to say 30% of that is rent or mortgage and home ownership. This state program, this pilot, actually moves that number from 30% to 38%. And there's some other conditions to it. It only applies to 100 and 120% area median income. It has some other conditions that come with it. But if you look at the same table we looked at before, you could see that 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom number goes up pretty dramatically, almost $100,000, a little bit over on one case, $1,000, where you can maximize the income. Again, it's maximizing it still means people need to be able to afford to live in said housing, but it is a program that folks around the state are wrestling with and working with right now to see if they can have some units that are a certain bracket and others to reduce that gap. So if we apply this program to that same gap funding analysis, it basically cuts that in half. So we had a 96 or up to $100,000 and on up. With a 38% program, it essentially goes to about $50,000 per unit in gap and on up, and it almost stays about 50%. So maybe worth looking at to help bridge that divide or really look at it. And then another program, if you could advance one slide, there's another program that's out there, this entry-level homeownership program. It's actually open now and accepting applications. It's essentially for price points below $400,000. So most of them are at $399,000. It may provide up to $100,000 per unit. And other components to it, it's competitive, but there are dollars at the state level that are allocated to this program, and development folks at this scale of 5 to 15 type units are trying to make this work to help produce units. So happy to answer any questions or.
I think, I'm sure it's just, I've seen it before, so I have a little bit more familiarity with this than my fellow counselors. But one other thing is also that for reasons that are a mystery to me, our understanding of our affordability, that is to say, the federal government has put us in a category with Fall River and Providence instead of Newport County, which is what we're in Newport County, but in terms of determining our affordability. So when your phrases look at 60% of affordable income, if we were in Newport, that actual number would be up higher. So, I mean, and people would be more able to afford, they would satisfy some of the criteria. So HUD applies Fall River and Providence to Jamestown for its own peculiar reasons. Instead of Newport County, but that would be, our luck in getting that changed is probably non-existent. So, but it's just an oddity of the whole system.
Madam President, if I could just offer kind of
Sure.
next steps and really what we're looking for. In my conversations with Nancy and also the consultants, we felt it'd be best if you accepted the concept, right, of the plan as presented by Union Studios. Certainly the fiscal piece is a component to look at further on down the road, the fiscal feasibility of it, if you will. But Nancy's suggestion is to begin to move it through pre-development, right, to bring it to planning, start that process with the ultimate goal, right, if it is successful through planning and pre-development, where you would be better prepared to develop an RFP. Right. So a lot of different ways we could develop an RFP. It could be very broad in terms of putting it out and letting developers put forth the best proposal of the mix of affordable versus market rate, for sale units versus rental units, right? And let the developers really go after the ability to fill that funding gap, whatever that may be, whether it's state, federal, local money, of whatever that happens, right? So we do have a ways to go in that. My thought process is when we do get to the RFP process is to let the market dictate what is the most feasible solution, right? Rather than saying, of course, we would want it to be 100% affordable with a 60% AMI. Of course, we would want that, right? Whether that's really achievable or not, the developers will help us dictate that and guide us in that path. So really out of tonight, if you are okay with the conceptual plan, the layout, to start, and Nancy could start to navigate that through pre-development of planning.
So you do have before you a recommendation from the Affordable Housing Committee. I see some of the members are here today. They were very enthusiastic about their overall impression of this study, and particularly how comprehensive it is in terms of kind of setting the table for a project to be able to move forward with some understanding as to what the considerations need to be. Obviously, all of the questions have not been answered, but what we'd like to do, speaking on behalf of the Affordable Housing Committee, is have this be moved forward as a conceptual plan, like any other multifamily development that would come to the community as a comprehensive permit. It would go to the Planning Commission for master plan approval. And by doing so, we not only have an opportunity for the public to be there and hear about it and present at the same time, but the Planning Commission will go over the exact same things they do for any other development with respect to sewer and water hookup and the like. So that very first step part of the process is really a conceptual plan, but that will complete the pre-development process and will provide something that has a little bit more back and a little bit more detail than it does right now, but not yet be complete. Okay, then it would have to go out for RFP. And for thinking timing, I would suggest that it's going to take a bit of time. Put an RFP out maybe early January of 2027, and then I foresee us having a process that continues on into fiscal year 27, 28, with going through the next stages of preliminary plan approval. That's when all the engineering gets done and those numbers that we saw actually get drilled down. And we not only look at what can be produced, but we also looking for funding. I foresee a collaborative arrangement between the community and a nonprofit developer in order to get as much out of this project as we can in terms of the meeting the LMI requirement. But that doesn't mean every single one of these units needs to be LMI deed restricted either. Again, we're trying to keep all of those things open so we can come up with the best solution, what fits best on the property and what helps the community out the most, right, in terms of new units. So with that said, I don't know.
That said, I would make a motion that we approve this resolution that takes us to the next step, which is having the conceptual plan reviewed by the Planning Commission, which is the deserving committee to review it.
And second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Before we move on, can I just ask one question?
Wait.
I'm fully supportive of it and I just voted for it, but is it customary for respondents to the RFP to condition it on like, I'll do this as long as there's, a sponsor that's willing to put in $4 million? I'm just wondering, because they're just seeing,
But I don't think they'll get very far.
well then, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
I just
I mean,
don't know how we get RFP responses.
Piece, and if we don't find something that satisfies the community's needs, and by the way, in the meantime, you'll be hearing shortly about doing a comprehensive housing study so that we can determine where actually the need is.
Yeah.
But if we don't get any responses to that, that doesn't mean we have to move forward. We can continue to look for other funding sources and continue that.
I hope we get responses, and I just want to make sure we're putting our best foot forward through that process. Okay, very well. All right, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go back now. Oh, we have one more.
Don't you have another thing to discuss, or is that we going back in order?
Oh, okay, good. No, we can go.
If you don't mind, And if we could go to the item under new business for the comprehensive housing study framework. Since it's in tandem, as I mentioned,
Is it E on the
Yeah, that's
agenda?
E on the agenda.
thank you very much. So once again, after discussion with the Affordable Housing Committee, they have endorsed and provided a draft resolution for an affordable housing needs assessment, and I'm calling it an implementation study. This, what is envisioned is something that doesn't only review what housing stock we have now, the condition of the housing stock, what the members of the community need in terms of further housing, but also does it in terms of a build-out analysis. And why that's important for Jamestown is because we all know that there are a lot of limitations in terms of types of development that we have available. Not only is it in the infrastructure, but it's in the high groundwater overlay, and in the fact that we're on an island. So it's my opinion that you can't really plan ahead strategically to develop more housing as you need it if you don't know how much you can actually build. So that being said, I believe that the study that I've done, I've managed a project like this before, and it's all gone very well. And it's really good information comes of it, and it allows the community to actually build strategies for affordable housing, whether it be workforce, middle income, low income, seniors, keeping people in their homes, aging in place, all of that. We can figure out all of that. Also, this study will give the town an opportunity to have an expert look at the programs that are currently in place, like the Affordable Lot Program, like the Sustainable Resident Program, and looking at some of the zoning ordinance provisions, and see where some tweaks can be made, or recommending some other forms of progress for the community towards their housing goals. None of this is going to be approved or determined until it's before the council, this council or the next council, for your approval. In general, the process would be, we put out an RFP, we get the responses, and in about 9 months we have the study, then we have the data that we can rely on, both in taking initiative as the town is like to do, but also if other developers come to the island and want to do development, and they say, oh, we're gonna build this, and you say, well, we don't need that. We can actually say, justify saying no to multifamily housing because we know what we need, and we're making some progress towards it.
So essentially, we're finding the data to support. I mean, we all sit here and say we need affordable housing, which we know, but we know that
What type of?
anecdotally and what type and who we're serving too, what community we're serving. You know, I've mentioned before, we're an old community. But you want the data, you want the facts and the figures behind that. And also, as you said, the resources and what can we build, where can we build it? What are impediments to building? So things like that.
The study will be done in the context of based on the uniqueness of this island, and what the resources are here. So
We have a resolution in front of us.
Yeah, so to that end.
Would you like to read it?
Sure. There's a resolution authorizing a housing needs assessment and implementation study, Whereas in the 2025 Comprehensive Community Plan, the town of Jamestown prioritized diversity of housing types as a priority land use and housing goal. Whereas policies in support of the housing goal include supporting workforce housing initiatives for local employees and essential workers, promoting housing rehabilitation and adaptive use of existing structures, and encourage small-scale housing solutions. Whereas the Jamestown Affordable Housing Committee has endorsed an RFP for an affordable housing needs assessment and implementation study at a cost not to exceed $100,000 paid by the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And whereas the study will be the foundation of a comprehensive plan amendment, strategic plan for housing production for the town of Jamestown, required by the state of Rhode Island. And whereas after review and discussion, the town council of the town of Jamestown has determined that through data collection and public engagement, this nexus study will define affordable housing needs for Jamestown's specific demographic, provide locally defined housing production goals, recommend regulatory changes and programs for strategic housing production, and establish sustainable governance and oversight and create related metrics to track progress. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town Council of the Town of Jamestown does hereby authorize a request for proposals for an affordable housing needs assessment and implementation study at a cost not to exceed $100,000, which may be expended from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Be it further resolved that the Jamestown Town Administrator, the Town Planner, the Affordable Housing Committee, and the Planning Commission shall consider this resolution a directive to prepare a strategic plan for housing production which aligns build-out potentials with municipal values and state regulations.
I'd move to approve this resolution.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Very
you.
much.
Okay, so I think we should
Nice
just,
presentation.
yeah, thank you, Nancy. Should we just go on with D?
Well, we're going out of order.
I know we are, but I mean, that has to, it's affordable housing.
Sure.
Why not? And then we'll go back
Okay.
to A.
All right.
Okay?
We need a motion to do so.
We're going to go to A right after this.
Sure.
Okay, sure, Tony. Okay, hold on.
Let's go back to A.
Okay, we're going to go back to A. This is a discussion in consideration of a request by Tony Panero to modify the current Fort Getty boat trailer parking policy.
Hi, Tony Opinero, 161 Beacon. I'm actually not here to modify it. It's to reaffirm what, in history, I can give you a short history on how this all became at Fort Getty with the parking. About 35 years ago, I was the first guy to actually pay to be on Fort Getty dock as a commercial operator or any operator. And I went to the Harbor Commission to get the permission with Sam Patterson, was the harbor, which he backed me up, which was
He was-
a master at the time.
Yep.
And there was a discussion on what the price was going to be for the dock. It was the first, this was the staple, what we were going to do with the dock, what the Harbor Commission was going to do. Because of the location of the dock, there was a price decided on the dock, but the price was including storage and parking in a certain area in the park. And that park, in the area in the park is still open. Nobody utilized it yet. It hasn't been, I've watched these other ad hoc meetings, nothing, that space has not been utilized for anything else. So I'd like to ask that we reaffirm my original dealings with the Harbor Commission about 35 years ago.
35 years ago?
About
Tony?
35 years ago.
Okay, I
Yes.
just said 5, sorry.
No, R5. It changed since, but just the phone calls that I've been getting to get the boat out, but I've never seen any legal parking restrictions set upon that.
Yeah, I can offer how the practice is applied today. So I'm not aware of any previous conditions from 35 years ago. I can tell you, as the former director of the Harbor Commission, executive director, I've never heard of that arrangement in the past. It has been a challenge. candidly with some of the out-haul permittees, as well as some of the folks on the pier related to equipment that they leave in the park, equipment on the beach, equipment on the dock, vessels left, broken trailers, unregistered boats, and this has been a challenge for years. I will tell you how Ray currently manages boat trailer parking in season. As you know, as a reminder, you can buy a permit for $750 per year as a resident or as an RV seasonal camper, and we'll give you a spot to park your boat trailer. Transient boat coming and going can park overnight at $30 per night. And of course, during the daytime, if you're a non-resident, it's $30 per day to come in with your truck and trailer. What Ray has facilitated over the last couple of years, even before Ray's time, is if you're a permit holder, outhaul or on the pier, you can come and go in and out of that park without a recreational pass. So you don't need an additional pass, right, for that. And what Ray has facilitated and tried to kind of manage a little bit better is if there is a need, one of those permit holders, being on the outhaul or on the pier, have a need related to weather condition, have to haul a boat, maintenance issue. All that Ray has asked for is you alert him and his staff. He will allow that. So we now tag all of those boat trailers, right? So we know what has a permit, what does not, what paid to come in for the day, what has an overnight permit. Otherwise, the staff can't manage what's allowed and what's not allowed. You can imagine if someone comes during the day, puts a boat trailer into one of those parking spots, could be somebody else's spot. It could be you're doing it without a fee. So that's how they manage it. So and Tony included, if they need an accommodation at no cost, all they have to do is alert Ray. Ray has the staff issue a tag. They're allowed to put that on the boat, and they have to check in periodically within a couple of days to have that vessel removed. So there's no fee involved. It's just not open and held for an individual, regardless of whether they have a permit or not.
How many of those permits are there, or how many people do we accommodate in that way?
So there's a number of ways, right? So you have daytime visitors, right? So those are the ones I talked about earlier, right? Which don't really have assigned parking. They park typically up on the roadway, found a parking spot. Those are people who come during the day, launch a boat, end of the day, leave with their boat and trailer. The seasonal passes, right? The 750, there's 20-ish spots, 26 spots where you can buy up, you get a spot assigned to you for the season, for your use, $750. You have to be a resident or a seasonal RV holder, right? Other than that, we don't have assigned spots there, right? So it is other open spots, which are used for parking and other needs in that particular area.
And are those 26 filled? I don't, yeah, it doesn't look like it's completely full. Yeah.
So there would be the opportunity for somebody like Tony, if he needed an accommodation at no fee, all he has to do is notify Ray. Ray has his staff issue a tag. That way it's properly tagged. We know it's there with permission, and it could go into one of those vacant spots or some other place.
And how many other?
What was resolved, I'm sorry, but what was resolved at the time, because of the conditions you get at that dock, it could be by the hour you need to get that out. I realize, and it's been accommodating when on storms and everything else. But if you have wind for 2 weeks, say, and I'm on that dock, I have to be, my trailer can't be there, you know, for that time. It may be, okay, you got permission for 2 weeks. I pulled out after the 2 weeks. Now I get an hour window where I can go out and get some of my equipment or do something to save my equipment and to be competitive with other markets where these other guys are paying the same price for a dock space, even less, and they could shoot out and get their stuff and come back in with an hour. If I can't go out there and get my stuff back to the dock in an hour like they did, then my market goes to them and I lose my viability in the industry. So that was what we established as the Harbor Commission, which was mostly fishermen at the time and understood exactly what the conditions were. The rate has been pretty close to what it was 35 years ago. So I'm not complaining about the rate, but it's upon those conditions that rate was set. It was high at the time. Some guys argued, well, that's a high rate because if you go to the State Pier in Galilee, you can get that same spot there and you don't have to pull your boat out when it blows. Or if you go to Wickford, you don't have to pull out when it blows. But because the conditions that we get at Fort Getty, it's it's a little different than having an office job where you could go in, if it's snowing, you could stay home. If it's blowing snow or whatever, and 1 minute to the next, it's not blowing, I can go out there and I can grab some equipment. At the time I was lobstering, I could go out and haul a few pots and I could sell the lobsters. Otherwise, we can't be in business. So that's why I'm asking this. I mean, if it was just something where I needed to be in and out, like I said, Ray's been great. Ed Mello's been great, but as far as, this is being on a pier in that location, it kind of goes with, it's kind of assumed liability or whatever, but assumed with that type of pier is what we came up with, that you should have that accommodation so you could actually be viable.
Can I ask just a more focused question?
Yeah,
It sounds
please.
like your expectation is that you should have a spot where you can have
Just
access
leave up,
to.
have a trailer there so I could pull my boat out.
Yeah.
Or have my boat there, so if at the last minute, I need to get out, I can just go grab my boat, go out and get back in without endangering
Yeah.
myself or my crew.
And we charge for that $750. I think your understanding is that
It's
your
already
deal
included in
includes
my
that.
price.
Do we have an agreement with Tony for what it is he gets or doesn't get, or we do?
Is this the,
So in-
but-
in-
That's the general
per-
agreement for all commercial docking here, besides
I
the
know,
park.
I wasn't here 35 years ago and.
No,
and
no,
8
well,
years ago,
it's
But I'm just.
Was?
Yeah.
this is
On the books now.
Not trying to be, I'm just thinking like, do we, how do we document this stuff?
So-
Is it
So pier
documented?
permits and outhaul permits are managed through the harbor office, right? So there's
Yeah.
a permit process. There's nothing in that permit that also gives you a parking spot for a boat or a trailer.
And
So
how much
I
of
would
those-
add, and I appreciate Tony's request and but there are other operators there as well. So you got to balance the number. There's 20 something outhauls. There's 5 or 6 vessels that are on the pier.
There's only 5 commercial operators, actually 5 commercial spots there, and I have 3 of them. So I would only ask for 1 spot, so it would only be a few of us. There's, how many there's 2 other guys on the dock that would, so like I said, there's 5 spots on the dock, and I have 3 of them, so it would only be 3 spots.
So you're looking for an exception? I mean,
Well,
or
for the
eith-
commercial
no,
commu-
either Harbor renegotiates its lease with you, right, is one option, or you're looking for an exception
Right,
from your
well, no,
lease.
it was actually the original lease that I got, that's why I went back.
That was 35 years ago.
Well,
When the
kind of
Harbor,
going, I've been there for 35 years.
when the Harbor Commission was all fishermen, according to you.
Well,
So-
not all, but a good majority.
No, no,
I
but
can-
yeah, right, because Mr. Gerner was, I think, the fishing representative of the Harbor Commission 35 years ago. Dennis Nixon was the chair,
It was actually Dave
Pritchard,
Richard.
right?
So has
Right.
this gone to the Harbor Commission? This
Please?
Have you gone?
I have, yes, I have. And I got pretty much agreement from the Harbor Commission. I'm going back for a natural letter because it wasn't on,
Send it back.
Can I call?
it wasn't on the agenda, so I couldn't get the actual letter, but I'm on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay,
The actual
great.
letter,
great.
that was agreement.
And in the meantime,
The general consent.
I think we can make some arrangement on that emergency basis that we've talked about.
Well, it sounds like it's already there.
What?
Yeah,
It sounds like it's already there.
Yeah, it's already
say
there.
we move it to the
Right.
next
We do
agenda
that.
and wait till we get the letter from the Harbor Commission.
Right. I just want to, and I just want to weigh in. I think, Tony's running a small business and I think we should try to help him out as much as we can to help him succeed. It's hard enough, so,
Thank you.
okay.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries.
All right, thank you, guys.
Okay.
Want to say something?
Yep.
Jump.
So,
Paul Sprague, 11 Mass Street.
Eric did.
yeah,
Seemed
sorry.
like Eric.
I had a question. So I just wanted to get a little validation on how many commercial operators do we have and what do we charge for commercial operators?
I don't know those numbers off the top of my head. I don't want to put Jim on the spot, but that's, again, managed by so there's a handful of them that are on the outhauls.
Right.
That are commercial operators, smaller number. Most of those are recreational operators there or vessels. And then there's as many as 5 or 6 slips, if you will, available on the pier that are commercial operators as well.
Yeah, so one of the things I'd suggest, we've talked about this a little bit, and this is an interesting intersection of it, is we have a little bit of a challenge at Fort Getty where we have, commercial and harbor issues, and we have parks and recreation issues, but we haven't really brought them together to make sure that they all make sense together, right? That those things have to be, some of that's a policy decision and what we do in the park, and some of it's necessary for fiscal consideration. Doesn't make sense if we charge $750 for a space to somebody or nothing to somebody else, or like, how are we managing all those things together? So maybe that's one of the things that we talk about at the next time when we talk about Fort Getty is bringing those two things together so we can see them side by side. Because I think it goes to what we're doing overall in the park and making a decision on what things we support, what things we don't support, or how to make sure they fit together.
Go ahead, Paul.
Sorry, Paul. Go ahead.
No problem. Paul Sprague, 11 Mass Street, also Harbor Commission, and I'm on the facilities. So this was discussed at our last meeting fairly briefly, and I agree with you, Eric, that it's finding that balance, right? And with the amount of space that we have down there. So one of the things that I brought up at Harbor, and I will bring up again tomorrow night at the meeting, is that in the broad spectrum of what's going on at Fort Getty is that perhaps the Harbor Commission procures a certain amount of space that is managed by the Harbor Commission so that we can accommodate our commercial tenants, because they come to us and we provide them the space and we manage their leases and so on and so forth. So there is a space there. There's some grassy area there that is available. So we're we're trying to work on figuring out how we can approach that and then come back to you folks to say, can Harbor have 5 spots?
That's why I asked Ray if they were all filled.
Right.
Because then
And
some of those
I
could
think
be,
the ones that Ray's talking about are already designated for
Those are
trailer
good. I think
parking.
you're
There is
thinking-
another
yeah,
area
yeah.
that's available that's kind of a grassy area, and I think Tony brought up at our meeting that it's kind of ideal for him because it has a little bit of a downcline, if you will. So when he parks the boat, it drains. It's not on, tipped up, which can catch rainwater and cause, the hull to flood, that kind of stuff. So that it's kind of an ideal area, and I'll try to point that out in greater detail after we have our meeting.
I think that the dilemma of it is just that, I think that trailer parking has been capped for Ray's benefit, at 26. So
Right.
you are talking about opening up possibly a new area. So that's what Eric is getting to, which is
Right.
this kind of coherent.
Exactly, yeah. So that and that we would
application.
manage that space. It would be
Yep.
out of Park and Recs.
And I think,
we would
and I
manage
think, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, but I do want to say I am sympathetic in terms of like the commercial interests that we have at Fort Getty and what the work that the Harbor Commission is doing. So I mean, I think it's smart to think about that, but also balancing the constraints. So it'll be good for you to have that conversation.
But also,
back.
everybody should know that when there's like in hurricanes or whatever, we've allowed people to park their boats on trailers in that area
Yeah.
forever. I mean, we have always done that when there are concerning
The
circumstances.
accessibility issue, I think, is what Tony's
Absolutely.
trying to maintain, trying to get across, is that when you're at these other harbors, Wickford, for instance, you don't have to go through this, right? But in his situation and the other guys down there, I got to get my boat out of there. Now he's got to go home, get the trailer, come downtown, get into Fort Getty, got to get the trailer in the water, get the boat, and all of a sudden now it's already blowing.
Right.
Whereas if it's there and available to him, it's a lot.
Well, I think it's not an emergency. It's part of his business operation
Exactly.
is what it is
Yeah.
that
And maintenance
yeah.
and things like, not that he's going to be working on his boat down there, but
Yeah.
if he has something broken, he can get it out, fix it and get it back
Right.
in, but the trailer can remain even when the boat is at the dock. So he has that designated
Yeah,
spot.
yeah.
It's not just for him. There's other guys down
No,
there.
understood. Yeah, but I think it's like the policy we have or the informality that we have around like helping people out doesn't work. It sounds like, and in this case, it's like we're very accommodating in emergencies, and it's just a matter of
Yeah.
if and how.
Yeah. And
we,
if it gets stuck in a snow drift
Yeah.
and you can't get the boat out for 2 weeks because there's a blizzard,
Yeah.
you don't want to get phone calls and get told, you got to get your boat out, and there's nobody at the park, right? So at least it's designated 365. This is your spot.
Well,
You
that-
can,
that's the
it's
problem
a
too, is
year-round business.
It's a park. It's not a harbor. So we got to be careful.
Well, that's
Well, but we
that's part of the
accommodate, we
challenge.
accommodate commercial
That-
operations down there. The sailing school is a commercial operation and the fishermen are commercial. So there is a balance, but I think we need to Harbor
if-
needs a spot.
I think
is
it
what
comes, I mean, Eric, I think your point about like, there's these converging or pieces, Harbor, Fort Getty, it's, so I think it reinforces your point.
Blended community.
There you go. So
Thank you.
are we straight on
I just want to say, yeah, I think
what we're
we're,
going to do?
I think we should bump it to the next agenda, which will be after the Harbor
Yeah.
Commission meeting.
Yep.
right.
See what they come back with.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
And,
Thank you.
and also, Tony, we wish your wife all the best.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Take care. Okay. Now, I guess we'll just go right down to B. Right?
All right, so what I have here is just a short report overview of some of the research I've done on local parks and recreation commissions in the state. I have a spreadsheet that I kind of try to grab all the charges, makeup of the different committees, and then just kind of an overview after talking to a few different directors in the state on their thoughts, and try to just kind of put them into one document here.
And so your feeling?
So my feeling on them are that if they are created where it will work for the community,
Yep.
and the size is not, too big,
Yeah.
and you have knowledgeable people on them, and they're directed with a proper charge, I think they can be beneficial to the rec department.
I know I even thought that it's important that the name, that the word advisory. stands
Absolutely.
for. You know what I mean?
I mean,
Right.
that was my concern is
Yeah.
I don't want, but for example, we have a harbor commission. We have a library board of trustees. We have, I mean, they just happen to be sitting in the audience. And I think that there is a case for this. I could certainly see it in terms of parks. Ray, I think you're the backwards and forwards about recreation. Parks is something that quite clearly a lot of people, parks are something, or a parks commission, something that a lot of people are concerned or have deep concern for. And so, especially on this island. So I think if you were for it, Ray, then I think I can be for it too.
One of the things, one quick question for you, Ray. I know it mentions in here that it's common for town council, school committee, parks director to be ex officio roles. Are there other examples where you have like Harbor Commission, which I think in the case for Jamestown would probably be an important ex officio role as well?
In my research, I didn't see any, but I could see that each community is different, right? And there may be, I think that's where the makeup of the commission would be. You have to think about who has a stake in the parks and recreation in that town. So, that's why some of them have school committee members, some of them don't, some of them have town council liaison, some of them don't. It also depends on the size of the community. Like they seem to be more successful with large communities, with a lot of different aspects and parks and things like that going on.
North Pawtucket has one, but
Right.
it was
True.
interesting to me that Narragansett has one where you
Bristol.
worked, and
Yep.
Barrington.
Barrington.
Yeah, I mean, the communities seem to vary, and there are a lot of them. So
Right.
makes me more appealing to me.
Yeah, I think it does. And just based on the last conversation, Ray, I'm curious. I'm sure there are plenty of parks and rec organizations in the state that have for-profit commercial entities in a park of some sort. Are there other similar ones like us that have them, that are on the water, that are part of through the Harbor Commission? I'm trying to think of somebody that has experience like we have as we kind of go through this thought process of how we arrange things in the
Not that comes to mind that I'm aware of.
No commercial fishing in town-owned properties and parks?
There is some. So East Greenwich, for example, recreation is responsible for harbor, management of the harbor, right?
Okay.
There are other examples like that. So what I would ask the council, if you have an interest in developing we'll call it a Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, if you could give the staff a little bit of time to put some thought into it and, start to draft a charge that's related to that. One of the things of concern, right, from my perspective is the number of committees, right? So we have a bike committee, pedestrian committee, Eldred Avenue committee. I'm sure there are others, right, which if you're going to have an advisory committee that's all inclusive in that nature, it might be helpful to push maybe members in that direction. But at some point, some of the committees some of them ask a lot of some of the staff at times.
For sure.
Right. So I'll just leave it at that. So
I
there
think-
is an opportunity, I think, to maybe consolidate that if there's a direction that the council so chooses to go.
Absolutely. And I think that's the idea, at least that's my idea, is to be able to limit some of that so we can consolidate some of those efforts whether we're talking about Bike Path Committee, Eldred Folk Committee, so it's a little bit more of a comprehensive look at all of our spaces and how they work together.
Yeah, and I'll use Eldred Avenue and Bike Paths as an example, right? We have two different committees, right? They don't work in lockstep in terms of their priorities, right?
Sure.
So when you hear about funding priorities, right, there's no priorities. Everything's a priority to that committee, right? So it might be helpful that if we're going to consolidate an advisory committee, we talk about rights of way are kind of the task of either the Harbor Commission or Conservation Commission. And so there's an opportunity to be more in lockstep, but we would need to streamline that process. That's all I would ask for.
Yeah, I mean, I would support, I mean, I think like you just noted all the caveats of like how it could be successful. I think if you work with Ed to come up with like the committee that you would hope could help you or would provide guidance and then come back to us and give us some thoughts on that, then I think that might be a good way to move forward.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's sort of like your dream team of who you'd want
Yeah.
to be on it, like a school, like a school committee
Sure.
member or a member of the Harbor Commission, and then we can eliminate this commission because we'll represent it in this way. So, and how many people you would want.
Great.
So you'll come back and see us,
Sure.
knowing that we're interested, we're curious, and see what you have.
All right.
Um,
You
Okay.
need a vote on that or anything?
All right.
All right,
Great.
cool.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for sticking around. with
Thank
us.
you, Ray.
Thanks, Ray.
All right, next is the discussion on the East Ferry, the TPG Marina lease.
Yes. So as the council knows, we've met several times in executive session to talk about the progress of our negotiations with TPG for a lease. So the lease, just as a reminder and a reset for everybody, the lease had expired December 31st of 2025. And I presented and the council approved an extension of the lease until the end of this calendar year, 2026. We have gone back and forth with TPG, including Jim Hegney's input and Mike Gray's input regarding the lease and the extension of a new lease, if you would. I just want to touch on what I would call the highlights of the lease and the changes to the lease as I am presenting to you tonight. Significant changes include the demised area. So the leased area going forward, most importantly, would not include the woodpile pier or the ancillary touch and go and floats attached to that, right? So as I expressed to the council in executive session and have said publicly, as well as to TPG, I think it's extremely important that that asset, the woodpile pier, become a very clear asset and responsibility of the Harbor Commission. It's a public asset. It is public access, and we just want a bright line that it's managed by the public entity. So that comes out of the lease in terms of the area. The pump out, I know this is a small item, but we have a pump out system there. It would include the ability for TPG to use that pump out for their own means, but most importantly is they could not connect that to a vessel sitting at the dock on a permanent basis. And what that does is that helps us manage and prevent the use and implementation of houseboats within their own private marina to the south or within our marina basin. The next item is related to the steel pier and the crane. So the proposed lease would allow TPG to continue to operate its crane on the steel pile pier as it has in the past. The next would be the terms of the lease, and that's related to what we're proposing is a 20-year lease and allow for 2 additional 5-year extensions for a total of 30 years. The value of that is about $3.3 million at an average of $110,000 per year. And the payment schedule for that is on page 109 of your packet if you want to look at the detail of that. That brings that average up. Right now, our past average was hovering in the 70s thousand for the last 10 years. We're bringing that average up to 110,000 over the next 30 years in terms of the terms and value of that lease. The transfer of that lease, we asked for a provision in there that it could not be transferred within the first 5 years. Essentially, that is approved. There is the exception of principal in TPG. If he or she should pass away, then we would have to reconsider that provision, obviously. This is probably the most significant change in the current lease conditions going forward. So the current lease, as it has been for literally decades, is the town was responsible for all major repairs, all capital investment related specifically to that steel pile pier. And, part of the current conditions and the conditions that would be going forward is the assessment of that pier and the condition of that pier. We know, based upon the current assessment of that pier, there's a significant several $100,000 investment that has to occur into that pier just to get it back to a concrete pier without a crane on it. The lease allows for TPG to consider the option to continue the crane operation. If they do so, really a number of things have to happen. One is they would have to come back to us to consider what that engineering solution would be to allow the safe operation of the crane without further degradation to that steel pile pier. And whatever that investment would be in terms of the capital would be their responsibility to do that. And we know, again, that's adding several $100,000 of capital investment that has to occur into that pier. At the very minimum, if TPG opts to say, we don't want to operate a crane there, they have to make that capital investment to make the necessary repairs that exist today. That's why we allowed the provision for a multi-year lease so they could realize the capital investment that they're making there. The second component, which I think is important to TPG as it is to us, and they realize this, and candidly, they probably have held off on further investment about their own assets within the Marina Basin. So we call the Marina Basin between basically the wood pile pier and the steel pile pier. That's the area that they're leasing to put floats and docks and all of that in. So they have committed to, within the next 10 years, to rebuild that infrastructure as well. That's got to go through permitting process. There is a high level plan that's in place for that. But again, that would have to be their own investment as well. That's within 10 years, right? So the first 5 years, they have to make the necessary repairs depending on whether they're executing the option to have the crane on the pier or not. Within the next 5 years after that, they have to make the investment within the Marina Basin and their own particular floats that they own those assets. So with that, I'm asking the council for consideration to approve the lease as it's presented with those terms. We still have some work to do. We are still, I would say fine tuning the lease, right? But these are the basic principles and terms that we've come to agreement with TPG on. There are some probably insurance matters we still need to clean up and of course, Peter's review as well. So if there's any questions or clarification you need, I'd be happy to answer those.
Just one question. The Schedule 2 that's on page 99 of our packet, I think or maybe it's 121, excuse me. Fuel dock environmental matters. Is that a new section or is that a carryover? It is.
That's a new section. So I know there were concerns about that. And those are things that, again, we're working with our insurance carrier to make sure, along with the solicitor, to make sure that we are best protected related to the fuel tanks. Again, a detail that we need to work out is the fuel tanks are their asset. We need to work out the provisions of what happens if they choose not to have that any longer, or we terminate the lease and the removal of those fuel tanks.
No, it's great to see the environmental matters addressed and contemplated in the new lease. Thank you.
And the capital improvements, because those are quite desperately needed. Thanks. So I would make a motion to approve this lease as described.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank
It's
you.
really good work, Ed. Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of work. Okay. Item D. Mary, do you want to
Yep.
take
so
the
this
lead
is-
on this one?
This is just to put before the voters on November 3rd, the ballot question of $3 million for affordable housing, and different projects. The Affordable Housing Committee, in addition to supporting the needs assessment, which you just described, which you just heard described, also has been looking at specific spots for affordable housing in addition to Knowles Court, which you also have heard and saw described. And because when we appeared before the financial town meeting a couple of years ago, or a year ago, we heard from people that there was no specific project. So where was this going to go? I remember even hearing from a supposedly left-leaning Democrat that what were they going to do? Put the affordable housing on Fort Getty? So anyway, that kind of just didn't bother to take a look at what the zoning was for Fort Getty. But hey, I think that we clearly need additional resources to do some of these projects, whether it is something like Knowles Court, which we've heard we will look at, and we put on a path, the only available path towards seeing what it really requires. Smaller projects that we've had in the past of single family houses, the affordable lot program, which we did the very first one this year, and it's kind of a wonderful win-win for everybody. Or small cluster developments that we have. The Affordable Housing Committee is looking at, already did look at, or had a consultant look at different areas in town-owned lots that would be available for affordable housing. And so those are also some specific locations. So I think I would urge us to support this, putting this bond on in front of the voters, and I know that my fellow folks from the Affordable Housing Committee will provide examples of the possibilities that this bond would afford us.
Any discussion?
Well, I would make a motion.
Motion. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to ordinances, appointments. So the only one that we could possibly tonight fill, if we so decided, would be the Zoning Board of Review. This is for one unexpired alternate member vacancy ending December 31st, 2026.
And Roberta, we advertised this in the conventional way, and this was our one applicant for this position, right?
Yes, and we advertised for months.
For months. Okay.
Well, then let's.
Think it's easy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I sure hope.
No, I think he's the best candidate.
Yeah. No, I think that's, you're looking at me as the only candidate.
Well, I know.
But I think he's great. And I would really, I wish him the best in the bar exam. I would nominate Robert DiMuccio for the zoning board, the position of alternate for the zoning board.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. The next is the consent agenda. Do we have anything we need to take out?
Do we have any short-term rentals on here? No, thank goodness. Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The council, it brings us to communications. The council acknowledges the communications. And that brings us to our last open forum of the evening. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay. So now I will entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all again for coming. It's staying up late. Well, it's late for me.